Okay. There he is. Good. Just in time. Good evening and welcome commissioners, participants, and interested parties to the March 21st, 2024 meeting of the Cohasset Conservation Commission. The meeting is now open. I'm Tom Bell, Chair of the Cohasset Conservation Commission, and will be running tonight's meeting as we implement the Massachusetts and Cohasset Wetlands Protection Acts and the Cohasset Stormwater Management Regulations. Conservation Commission meeting is now in session and is being held on a Zoom platform. If you have any questions for the commission, put them in the Q&A section at the bottom of the page, and when called, please limit your discussion to 3 minutes. You must include your name and address to be recognized. Present this evening on behalf of the Conservation Commission are our Conservation Administrator, Angela Giso, and the town's Conservation Agent, Charlotte Pechtel. I'll now make a roll call vote of the Conservation Commissioners. Please respond by repeating your name and saying present. Will Ashton?
Will Ashton, present.
Kathy Berrigan?
Kathy Berrigan, present.
Chris McIntyre?
Chris McIntyre, present.
Valerio Romano?
Valerio Romano, present.
Tom Bell, present. Tonight we have a quorum of 5. Okay. Let me scroll down here in my script. So before proceeding to the public hearing, the following items are continued. So if you're sitting around in the audience waiting to hear these, you're going to have to wait for a while. Show cause, 26 Lambert's Lane, tree removal. That's continued to April 4th. Show cause number for NOI 2401, also 26 Lambert's Lane. Restore waterfront, 2 houses, continued until April 4th, 2024. NOI 2328, 31 Bow Street, pool patio driveway, continued to April 4th as well. Show cause for NOI 2213 and stormwater permit 2210 for 44 Little Harbor. That's been continued to also to April 4th, 24. NOI 242, stormwater permit 242, 35 Nichols Road. That is continued to 4/14/24. NOI 2334, Turkey Hill Road, continued to 5/2/24. Amended NOI 1920, 70 Border Street. That's continued to May 2nd, 24. I already mentioned, I believe, hang on a second, show cause. No, the NOI 24014, 26 Lambert's Lane will be continued until April 4th, 2024. We also have some continued certificates of compliance for stormwater permit 1915 for 149 King Street. That date is yet to be determined. NOI 2217-422 Atlantic Avenue, that's continued until 4/18/24.
And there's just there's a small typo, 35 Nichols Road, NOI 2402 and stormwater permit 2402 is continued to April 4th. So 4/4/24.
Okay.
Not 4/14.
Okay. We also have some business to take care of first. We have minutes for approval for January 4th, January 18th, and February 16th.
Everyone was here except Valerio. You missed January 4th for all those meetings. You guys were all here.
Okay, so Valerio, you'll be counted as an abstention for that. So for the rest of it, can I bundle these, Charlotte, and have a single vote on all of them?
Sure.
Okay. I move that we approve the minutes for January 4th, 2024, January 18th, 2024, February 16th, 2024. Valeria, you can vote yes, but we know that it really means abstain from that single one. So all in favor, say aye.
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 Or do I have to do a roll call, Charlotte?
Roll call, sorry.
Okay.
Second.
Tonight. You can fire me. Ashton?
Will Ashton, aye.
Kathy Berrigan?
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Chris McIntyre?
Chris McIntyre, aye.
Valerio Romano for January, is it 18th and February 16th?
Valerio Romano, aye.
And for January 4th? Abstain?
Abstain.
Okay, thank you. Tom Bell for all three, aye. Okay, our next order of business is to appoint somebody or solicit a volunteer to the Community Preservation Committee. So, somebody's already on this. One of us is already on this. Is that correct?
It was Eric, but since
Oh, wow.
Eric, yeah,
I thought we had thought we had somebody that stepped up and wanted to do it.
I don't think so. I think we have to appoint someone because Eric left in like January, so I don't think we filled the position yet. We
Okay.
still have people for open space, but and Turkey Hill, but I don't think we filled the space for CPC yet.
Okay, do I have any volunteers for that? Don't everybody
So
raise it?
I had volunteered to be the ZBA liaison, but that's actually been very little of a lift. So I don't mind doing this unless somebody else wants to. I'm happy to.
Do we have an official liaison with ZBA?
And not ZBA, no, that was to like just kind of keep an eye on general, yeah.
Yeah, maybe I overstated the formality of the position.
Yeah, yeah, we talked about trying to at least follow the agendas that are coming up so that if anything looks like it spills over into our court, that we would get at least a little bit of advance notice from one of the commissioners. But Valeria, since you're speaking, how would you like to be the liaison for the Community Preservation Committee?
So exactly what does it entail? I apologize. I mean, I am volunteering, but just to make sure I know what I'm jumping into.
Well, you attend their meetings and
Yep.
then report back to us what anything that's significant for us. It's really not much different from what
Sure.
you were doing. And I would say that if you read their agenda in advance and see that there's really nothing that's really pertinent to our jurisdiction that on their agenda, then don't bother. But if you see something there that you should that we should be aware of, then yes, you'd attend.
I don't think
I'd love to
they
do it.
have like a set meeting schedule. I can double check with Angela, but I don't think they meet super often. Like I think sometimes they meet more often during certain times of the year, but then other times not as often. If I remember correctly, I don't know if Chris, if that sounds right, but
Sorry. Did you
for
say,
CPC, I don't know how often they meet. You guys, open space meets about once a month or once every other month, correct?
correct?
I think they're pretty similar, Valerio.
I'm not sure about their.
So I'm happy to do it.
Well, good.
I'll keep us informed.
Okay. Does that require a motion? Charlotte?
Someone has to motion
Nominate?
to appoint him, yeah.
Okay, I
And someone
nominate
seconds.
Valerio Romano to be the Conservation Commission's representative or liaison with the Community Preservation Committee.
Second.
We'll have a roll call vote. Will Ashton,
Will Ashton, aye.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Chris McIntyre,
Chris McIntyre, aye.
Valerio, you can vote for yourself.
I can? All right, I'll vote for myself. But Valerio Romano, aye.
Why not? Tom Bell votes aye too. Congratulations.
Great, thanks.
Okay, so that takes care of our housekeeping. So the next thing is a little bit of housekeeping too. Our first public hearing is for stormwater permit 2406 1 Reservoir Road. I'm going to read that into the record. In accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Cohasset Wetlands Bylaw and the Cohasset Stormwater Bylaw, the Cohasset Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, March 21st, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. via remote participation on a Zoom platform for stormwater permit 2406 at 1 Reservoir Road. The public hearing is now open. And now that it's open, we are going to continue it until April 4th, 2024. Okay. The next is a real matter of business. It's a public hearing for NOI 24-4 and stormwater permit 24-7 for 98, 100, 102, and 104 Howard Gleason Road for a upgraded or new common driveway. So in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, Cohasset Wetlands Bylaw, and the Cohasset Stormwater Bylaw, the Cohasset Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, March 21st, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. via remote participation on Zoom platform for NOI 2404, stormwater permit 24/7 at 98, 100, 102, 104 Howard Gleason Road. The public hearing is now open.
Good evening, everyone. My name for the record is Carmen Hudson from Merrill Engineers. I am representing tonight Mr. Norbert Hermans, the applicant for the project. Is a common driveway project at 98 through 104 Howard Gleason Road. The property owners are two, actually, and if can everybody see this plan?
Yes.
Okay, so the site consists of 4 lots. This lot right here is a developed lot. It has a single family home. That's 98 Howard Gleason Road. And it's the only lot that is completely developed. These 3 other lots are 100, 102, and 104 Howard Gleason Road. These are vacant lots that have frontage along Howard Gleason Road. As you can see, the frontage is on wetlands. So what we are in front of you tonight, actually, before I go into the project, let me show you, and I know there's a lot of line work, but these are the existing conditions, just so that you envision what is there today. So this is right in front of the Cohasset Yacht Club. And this is a very long driveway. It's a paved driveway, 12 feet in width. There are no curbing. There's no curbing, no Cape Cod berms on the side. So it's just pavement. And it goes into this parking area right here with a detached garage. And this is the existing dwelling. This is 98 Howard Gleason Road. There is a very large BVW. This is a bordering vegetated wetland. However, within the wetland itself, there's a high point right here. And this portion of the wetland drains. There is a catch basin right here. And it drains into the catch basin because the catch basin is actually in the grass. And it goes out to Cohasset Cove at a head wall. And this portion of the BVW actually goes to the back, and it drains to Cohasset Harbor in the back. So for all of these properties, there are 2 subcatchment areas. One that drains towards the wetland, and if it drains towards the wetland, on the left side, that is the north side of the high point, then it will drain to Cohasset Harbor. And on the other side, it will drain towards the Cohasset Cove. So right now, the driveway, some of it goes in that direction towards the back, and some of it goes just down the street and towards Howard Gleason. At the end of the day, everything, so that is Howard Gleason Road. There are no stormwater structures on Howard Gleason Road, and it just drains over to this catch basin, in the street layout. I'm sorry, this catch basin in the street layout, and then it goes out the head wall. During very heavy coastal storms, the road, gets overtopped with water. Normally, it doesn't reach this side of the road, so the driveway itself actually hasn't seen the salt water, but the road does get, wet with heavy coastal storms. So for stormwater, now we're talking about fresh water, rainwater. So what we are proposing is, instead of having 3 more driveways to access these 3 vacant lots, and these are legal building lots, we're proposing 1 common driveway. So by the way, all of this hatching area, that is an easement, that is the common driveway easement. So it doesn't mean that any work is going to take place there. It simply means that we can do, any kind of stormwater or anything or grading for the common driveway. And all of our work is within this area and within Mr. Harman's property. These hatched areas right here are the easements that are being proposed for the stormwater controls, the infiltration systems, and the outflow pipes. So this is what we are proposing. We're proposing to widen the driveway from 12 feet to 15 feet. We are also proposing to have Cape Cod berms on either side to make sure that everything is captured and directly the way we want to. And also we're proposing a 1.5 foot gravel flat area. So that is just a flat area on the side. So these are gravel shoulders on either side. So that is what this lines right here, this is just a gravel shoulder. This is a 15-foot paved common driveway with that right here is a 1-foot Cape Cod berm. So we're proposing, instead of having a cul-de-sac, because cul-de-sacs have more pavement, we're proposing to have a hammerhead. This is for access for emergency vehicles. This also has already been approved by the planning board, and we are going to be in front of the ZBA for work in the floodplain on the 2nd of April. So we are proposing to capture any water that comes from the existing driveway and this portion, the turnaround of the driveway, in this catch basin right here. And we're sending it to an infiltration system. So this is a subsurface infiltration system. You will not see it on the top. And then the rest of the pavement up to this point will be captured by this catch basin. And by the way, these are double grade catch basins to ensure that all the flow is captured by these structures. And this is being sent over to this infiltration system right here. So there's going to be only a small portion of the driveway that will continue going towards Howard Gleason Road untreated. However, this area of driveway is less than the existing area of driveway that is going untreated. By controlling the stormwater through these infiltration systems and the deep sump catch basins, we're actually reducing post rate of runoff and volume during all design storm events in both directions. Actually, in this direction, it goes down by about half a CFS in every storm, and in this direction, it's about 0.2 CFS in every storm. Let me see, we're proposing, so what is happening here, now to concentrate on the notice of intent portion of this. The existing, so there is a stone wall that you see right, on the side of the road. And right here is the existing paved driveway. That paved driveway is about 4 feet from the wetland. So that's the existing paved driveway. We're proposed to push it over, and this is, right now it's kind of at an angle. We're proposing it to be more of a 90-degree angle with the road. So this is going to be increased, from 4 feet to 9 feet. Of course, I could just say, 125%, but when you're talking about a tiny little distance, doubling is not much. So it goes from 4 to 9. And let me see. So we're proposing some grading. All of this is lawn. There's going to be a tree over here that falls where the footprint of the driveway pretty much is on the grading that is going to be removed. And Mr. Hermans would be happy to replace that with whatever tree the Conservation Commission would like to see it replaced with. There's another tree that is actually at the limit of the 50-foot buffer zone. A tree, we put together a tree plan. Let me see. So this is our tree plan with, there's going to be a silt sock and silt fencing all throughout. There's going to be a taller construction barrier around the wetland as well. This is the construction entrance, and all of these trees in red are going to be the trees that are going to be removed. The tree that I was mentioning that is going to be removed in the 50-foot buffer zone is right here. And then this is the tree that is right at the limit of the 50. Then there are additional trees that will be removed within the 100-foot buffer zone here and within the footprint of the driveway. All of these are outside of the 100-foot buffer zone. So this also shows what the siltation barriers will do. We have a siltation erosion and sedimentation plan that shows this more clearly. And I think at this point, I would like to answer any questions that the commission might have.
Charlotte, do you have any comments before the commissioners start asking questions?
Yes, I'll try to keep them brief. So I'll just note that there is an abutting salt marsh on the opposite side of Howard Gleason that obviously is not on these properties. But just wanted to make note of that the, buffer zones, of course, will overlap with the ones you see here. I did clarify with Carmen and the applicant that the applicant is not looking to confirm the wetland delineations for the entire site, really just for the ones closest to the limit of work. So I would say the ones starting from the beginning of the driveway, maybe up to like A7 or A8, that kind of reach that 100-foot buffer within the limit of work. So the rest of them, they're not asking for confirmation there. This, as Carmen, I think briefly mentioned it went through planning board. There was a peer review. Stormwater design was evaluated as part of that peer review. So I did read those comments, looked through everything. They did address all the comments during the peer review. So just wanted to kind of let you guys know that someone did look at this. And, as Carmen mentioned, there are trees in the 50 and 100-foot buffer to be removed. I did have a lot of notes for erosion and sedimentation control, which Carmen updated the plans on. The work in the buffer zone obviously would need a variance from the commission for work in the 50 feet and for greater than 1,000 square feet of a resource area alteration for land subject to coastal storm flowage.
Thanks. Commissioners, questions, comments?
Yes, Carmen, could I please see the section you had with all the trees that were going to be removed again? Please. So I'm wondering why the trees that are not near the driveway, all the ones, to the west of that, why all those other ones are going to be removed?
Are we talking about this trees right here?
Yes, and
yes,
around the other area also further. And also,
this side?
and they're also,
So these are stockpiling areas. They're outside of the 100-foot buffer zone. So we just need an area where they can stage and they can put, I don't know, maybe park vehicles, have some materials there. And we need to keep it outside of the 100-foot buffer zone. So this was a good area to do it. There is a lot of ledge, an awful lot of ledge there. So we're just trying to have a location that is pretty, that is drivable today. So this was the area, that's where we're proposing to have the trees removed, and here as well. I mean, all of the other areas are because of grading or, structures, but yeah, so this is going to be a stockpiling area. Yeah, and this is going to be also a stockpiling area.
and there was no other possibility to do those things without removing all those trees?
The only thing is, we just don't have anywhere. We do need some kind of area. And I don't really see where we could have it. I mean, we have, I can go to the existing conditions plan. I thought those were the closest to the driveway right here. So the areas that we're talking about are right here and right here. So those were the closest to the driveway where people can just put the materials, the staging and the cars. As you see, this is just, so these are existing, actually, I'm sorry. Let me go to existing conditions. So it's stockpiling areas here, and another one is like somewhere around right here where it's flat. So you see all of this is ledge, that's also ledge, and it just goes up. It's what made the most sense.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Further questions?
Just to be clear though, if I understood, you're removing trees within the setback for staging purposes?
Not within the setback.
Okay,
Um,
I thought the inner ones were in the setback. They're all
No, so
outside.
this-
Okay,
Yeah, so this,
Those would
this
be within the buffer
green,
zones.
yeah,
It's
so
not a
this,
setback.
this green line is the 100-foot buffer. So the staging is
Okay.
out. That was the whole
Okay,
purpose.
all right, good.
Outside.
Yeah, sorry, I was confused there. Okay, yep. And then what's the change in impervious or impervious surface before and after the project?
Altogether, so altogether, we are going, let me put this here. We're going from 9,659 square feet to 13,936 square feet. So there's a 4,277, so like 4,300 square feet increase of pavement. And that would serve 4 houses instead of just 1. And that includes the 1-foot Cape Cod berms on either side.
Just last clarity, you said the remaining board that you have to go through is the zoning board?
Yes,
What's the variance that you're seeking again? I'm sorry.
it's not a variance. Whenever you're proposing any kind of work within the floodplain. So let me go to the existing conditions. So you know it as land subject to coastal storm flowage in this case. This is the floodplain. So for example, proposing a driveway or change of a driveway within the floodplain requires a special permit from the
Special
zoning board,
permit from the zoning
Mhm.
board. Yeah.
not a
Okay.
variance. Mhm.
Further questions?
There's a lot going on here. I think I would personally like to do a site visit. Just to get a feel for it. It's very busy. All these plans are very, very busy. I'd like to walk it, if that's possible.
Carmen, is that possible?
Of course.
Good. Maybe we can set a date. An approximate date.
Yeah, Carmen, I did see all the wetland flags that were out there. I did see a couple other stakes, but I couldn't identify what they were. We know obviously where the driveway is, but did
We
you?
didn't, we
Yeah.
didn't stake out the driveway is very close to where the existing
Yeah.
driveway is. So actually, if you need anything staked out, this would be the time to set it
Yep.
up.
Yeah, that
so-
was going to be my question for the commission. I did see the wetland stuff was all there, but I was trying to find the exact spot for the infiltration and the overflow pipes. I'm sure you guys did these pits a while ago, so I couldn't really see like the recent evident, dirt exposed. You know what I mean? Like it was hard to sort of find. I think I found them, but yeah, if we could maybe see where those are on site, I think that'll be helpful.
Okay, so like the 4 corners of the 2 infiltration systems, or just the one down here? Would
Tom,
you
I see
like-
you nod your head, maybe the 4 corners of each
Okay.
infiltration system.
Okay, and you want to have like a stake right here?
Yeah, maybe for the
So
overflow.
at the closest point to the wetland? Okay.
Correct.
Now I will be working from Texas, starting on April 9th. I go and help my daughter with my grandson, 4 months old. So pretty much the whole month of April, I will be away. I can set up this if somebody needs me after actually, when is the next hearing?
April
before the 9th.
4th.
Okay.
April 4th is the next one, but I will just
Okay,
note that
so that
April
should
4th
be-
is already pretty long.
Oh,
So-
I know. I would love to have my sleep. This is wonderful. I'm thoroughly enjoying tonight's hearing. I mean, I don't know. I would assume that why don't we try to do it the following hearing then?
Okay. So
When is the
April
following
18th.
hearing? The 18th?
Okay,
Maybe I can be at the top of the agenda.
there you go.
Um,
So did you want to be present for the site visit, Carmen? You said you're leaving April 9th. Do you want to maybe
April
try
9th,
and do
yes.
something before?
Yes, I definitely can. The only thing is going to be making sure that the surveyors are available to do this. But if we could talk about a date, if it gives them a little bit of time.
Yeah, why don't you and Charlotte make a plan here and then inform us, and we'll see who can attend and who can't.
Okay. And Mr. Chair, we do have a comment in the audience.
Well, the commissioners aren't done yet.
Yep, oh, sorry.
We'll
Yep. Just wanted to let you know.
leave the audience to last. Will, did you have anything any questions about this? He may be away. I have a couple of questions. Well, we wait for him to come back. Carmen, first of all, this is, as you pointed out at the beginning, this is a very busy drawing. And I would assume that there's layers here that you can turn on and off. Is that right?
Sure.
Oh, good. Show us what layers. Let's try to simplify this, because I think that for most people, looking at so many lines
Mhm.
is distracting. And so if you could turn off the topography to start with, I think that would be helpful.
Okay, so actually, if I could do it on CAD, that would be great, if you don't mind the colors. Let me change,
Sure.
can I do it? I've never done it on PDF. Maybe I can do it.
Oh, yeah, sure. I go back, open that back up. I'll show you how to do it.
Oh, that would be awesome. Thank you so much. So let me put it back up. Okay, so how can I?
Okay, see that on the right-hand column there, you have a stack of papers, it looks like, down
Okay.
one. Oh,
That one?
it's the fourth one down.
Oh,
I think that's your layers right there. Click.
Okay.
There you go.
those are my
Oh, no,
page-
that's your thumbnails. Oh, maybe it doesn't have any layers. No, it does not. Okay, so we can't simplify it, unfortunately.
Okay.
So my next question really is, I'd really like to see the boundaries of your subcatchments.
Oh, they are, so that would be in my. Just go down, and I'm sorry, let me stop the share for this.
And maybe you can encourage your drafting department in the future to actually create, I know they've got layers in their AutoCAD drawing,
Mhm.
and it would be helpful if they were organized so that you could turn things on and off, because that's a really busy drawing, and it took me a while today to kind of sort it out, and I'm used to looking at these things, as a couple
I
of the rest of
apologize.
us are, but I think.
And
for-
actually, I am the drafting department for really
Oh.
all of my projects, so I can figure it out. I can figure out how to do the.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, it's a way of, you just have to save your PDF differently, not as a
Okay.
flat image, but you just need to save the layers. I don't remember
Okay.
quite how to do it in AutoCAD, but I know it can be done. Okay, so okay, great. That's really helpful.
So this is the existing conditions.
Yeah, okay. So really, it's a kind of a north-south line almost, huh? Oh, no, east-west line.
So the south is there, so yes, so
yeah,
this is the
yeah,
west.
Mhm.
So that's the high point right there that I was talking about.
So you don't have footprints for the structures that will be built on these 4 lots yet, I take it, right?
We don't know. We don't have anything just yet. So right now we're just working on getting the common driveway approved. And then each one will be developed separately.
Well, I also want to thank you for for not coming in and requesting a limited project driveway for 3 of these, crossing the wetland. That would have
Yes.
really been hard on us, I think. So,
Yes, and there is absolutely no need for that.
yes, I see that.
So,
That's good. That's good. So you referred to some gravel. I would assume that some gravel edges on the driveway, and I assume these are like pullouts so 2 cars can pass if they needed to. Could you show us where those are?
yes,
I'm jumping, I'm making an assumption there. Is that correct? That's what those gravel areas are going to be used for?
it is for that, as well as, so, actually, so this, it's not just for passing, it's also for runoff, you know,
Oh,
so
okay.
it just
Sure.
stays on the sides. But also, back when we, in 2017, the A&R was approved for the 4 lots. In 2019, a definitive subdivision was approved. So this is the zoning bylaw that we go for this project is the zoning bylaw that was in effect in 2018. So the ledge removal, for example, does not apply to this project. However, the common driveway regulations that were at the time of 2018 were actually more strict than the common driveway regulations today. So today, they only need a 12-foot wide paved driveway, paved common driveway. But before, back when we got the freeze, it was a 15-foot wide paved driveway with the Cape Cod berms or the curves and also a shoulder. So not only does this, it's better in the manner that, yes, it gives you a little bit more space to pass if you need to, and also for stormwater. We also had to comply with those requirements at that time. So that is why we're proposing what we're proposing. It was the minimum requirements at the time of 2018. And I have a detail on the plan.
Okay. See,
And I pass the details. So this is the detail. And I'm sorry, I have all of you on that side. So it's a shoulder, 1.5 foot shoulder, 1 foot berm, 1.5 foot shoulder. And everything slopes to one side because that's the natural slope right now. And that way also we keep the need to only one set of structures on one side of the driveway instead of 2.
so I would point out that this particular part of the drawing does have layers. The layer icon appeared when you scroll down to this. It's that stack of squares. Now it's the 5th tool down on
So there's 4.
the 5th tool, where it says add, delete, and go to specific page using thumbnail. Okay, underneath that, see those 2 squares that are stacked on top of each other?
Yes. Okay.
Click those and see what happens.
Okay, so I'm clicking on that.
No, I didn't see your cursor go over to it.
Yeah, there's a hand. Huh. Okay, so I'm clicking on it. I can make it bigger. So, it only affects the view. It does not. I'll figure it out. Not to worry. You
Okay,
gave me
all right,
homework.
let's not get
I will
lost in that.
figure it out.
This is a less complicated plan than what we were looking at before, so it's certainly adequate for what we're talking about. So I guess I have another question, which is it possible to move the southernmost infiltration chamber out of the 100-foot buffer?
So actually, that was a question that Charlotte had. And unfortunately, here you can see it.
And that'd take it out of the floodplain as well.
So there, and you will see it also during the site visit, there is so much ledge here. There is so much ledge. As you can see, and this is just the the ledge that you see, never mind the ledge underneath the ground.
Well, it looks like you're gonna fill to get your 2-foot clearance to me.
We are, however, we're trying to minimize, I mean, we are increasing this by about a foot. But we're trying to minimize the fill at least within the buffer zone. And
Sure,
and
of
this
course.
was,
But if you pull it out of the buffer zone and use fill, you're accomplishing the same thing, and then you're getting out of the buffer zone too.
that it would not be possible to have that size infiltration system out here, especially with all of this ledge around. I mean, we did the test bits. We're trying to say, so my infiltration system actually begins right here and goes out there.
I don't see where you're pointing.
Oh, you don't see it. I'm sorry. Let me go to the proposed. So, and let me just do this. So the test pit that we were looking at is right there.
I think you
Oh.
need to, I think you need to scroll to the page you're actually pointing at. We're still looking at the subcatchment.
Okay, I'm so sorry. So I
You're
didn't
looking
know
for the
that-
test pits, Carmen. They're on page 2. I didn't know if you were showing them that.
I thought, so I have two screens.
There we
on
go.
my,
Oh, okay. Yep,
yes.
perfect. We see
There
it.
we go.
I have two screens on my
Okay.
at home. I'm at home right now, and I didn't realize that when I went to the other screen, you couldn't see it. I am so sorry. There's so much I have to
Okay,
learn.
so actually this clarifies some things. So I can see that you have bedrock just to the north of your pit, of your
Yeah, so
infiltration chamber. So that suddenly makes sense.
yes, it was just unavoidable. And even this test bit, you know,
So you did have to put fill in here to get your 2 feet of clearance from the bottom of the chambers to the model zone.
yes,
Or-
and also so
Or did you get refusal there?
no, we didn't get refusal, thank goodness.
Okay.
We got, you see, as you can see, with the wetland right here,
Yeah.
you expect, in this case, we expected high groundwater and ledge.
Yeah.
But also going through the process with the planning board, they were very concerned about the overtopping. One of the planning board members belongs to the yacht club, and she's very familiar with how often the yacht club floods. So they actually were originally, that was during our first hearing, we had 2 hearings with them. They were asking to make the driveway wider to 18 feet, and we were already at wider than today's requirements at 15 feet. And also they were hoping to see more fill. So we did put fill because it does make sense going up, and so that the grading, I mean, as it is, it's a little bit tight here, but not as tight as it is today. But also to keep it, you know, more, have less of the driveway be subject to a severe storm. So right now, the severe coastal storms, the regular ones, don't go past the high point of Howard Gleason Road. So we do have fill right here, and it would have been more fill by the requirement of the planning board, but thankfully they didn't push on that. So this is, we're trying to get a happy medium between all of the different interests of the different boards and commissions.
So it looks like you've got, it's kind of interesting that you're, I think I'm looking at a 10-foot contour. You want,
No, it's 1 foot contours.
yeah. So, I mean, that's the boundary of the flood zone.
Right here, yes.
Okay, that is the 10 foot, but on your driveway, trying to
Mhm.
figure out what the 10 foot's going to be there once the fill is
Right.
in.
Here. Yes, can you see my cursor, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm sorry, before you couldn't see it because you couldn't see my plan. Okay, so
You-
yes, so
you
this
were
is
looking at- You were looking at a different map than we were.
yes, we were looking at different screens. So this would be the new floodplain.
Yeah, right.
The 10-foot contour right here.
Right.
So we're really cutting it in half. It goes from about 200 feet in the floodplain, more or less, to about 100 feet in the floodplain.
Okay, so I think you've answered my questions. It looks like it's not feasible to scoot your infiltration chambers to the north because of that bedrock outcrop there.
Mhm.
And I understand the subcatchments better now. Thank you. So beyond that, and the gravel again was to which
So
side of
that
the
is-
which side of the berm is that gravel alongside the driveway going to be on?
Oh, it's on both sides. It's on both
Yeah,
sides.
but I
So-
mean, you've got a Cape Cod berm there. Is it on the inside of that or the outside of that?
Oh, no, the outside. It's
The
the
outside.
outside. So first is the pavement,
Yes.
Cape Cod berm, and
Yep.
then the gravel shoulder.
I
So
see.
the pavement.
Do
Cape
you have
Cod
a
berm-
cross section of that?
Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. You didn't see it. You see,
No, I
so
didn't.
the presentation I had to
Yeah.
myself, I guess, included all of that. I apologize.
It's okay. Okay, I see. Okay, I get it. Great.
So those are the gravel shoulders.
Okay. I don't have any further questions.
Mr. Chair, we have one question in the audience. I can read
Yeah.
it because this is Grace Evans, resident of Howard Gleason Road, 76 Howard Gleason Road, to be precise. I would like to clarify that several times a year there is salt water flooding probably 20 feet up the driveway. I'm also curious if any of this work would impact the ground below the, I believe, Cohasset Yacht Club CYC parking lot or below Howard Gleason Road towards Bellarmine.
So, oh, I'm sorry.
Maybe to answer that, Carmen, you should go back to the map we were just looking at. Yeah.
I wasn't sure if I should answer because you hadn't asked me to.
Oh, wait, he said what it went 200 feet up that, so that would take it to the existing 10-foot contour. Is that right?
She was asking for about 20 feet up the driveway, so it was
20 feet up the driveway.
yeah, flooding probably 20 feet up the driveway, and curious how the work would impact the ground below Cohasset Yacht Club parking lot or below Howard Gleason Road towards Bellarmine.
So what I was.
So Carmen,
going
you want to show us
Mhm.
what 20 feet up the driveway, approximately where that is?
Okay, so that's 50 feet right here.
Oh, okay.
That's 25 feet right here.
Okay, so it doesn't go very far
about-
up the driveway.
No, so 20 feet would be at the property boundary.
Yeah, okay.
But the road actually has a very slight crown. You can see it right here with the contour. So any flow that comes on this from here on this in this direction really goes into the wetland. And then when this overtops, it goes into this catch basin. However, this catch basin, I've seen it I mean, it's always full. So it's
Full of
not a
what?
very good working catch basin, but this is the low point right here.
The catch basin is full of what? Water or?
Water. No, water.
At high tide? Yeah, I'm sure it is.
Not just at high tide. I've always seen it every time I've seen it, and I've seen it, when there's been after a coastal storm. I've seen it when it wasn't raining at all. It's just not. It's too low. This whole area is too low.
Oh, there's a wetland. There's a wetland there.
It is a wetland.
So it shouldn't be a surprise that it's always wet.
But in any case, the yacht club is on this side, and the water doesn't cross the road to go there. The low point is here, and there is a crown on the road. And of course, we're talking about stormwater. This is fresh water, not coastal water that
Right.
comes from the direction of the yacht club over.
So your HydroCAD model is showing you that the discharge, surface discharge here is going to decrease.
Yes,
correct?
yes, so we're talking freshwater, yes.
right.
Freshwater, peak rate of runoff is going to decrease in every storm event. It's about half a CFS, more or less, in
if you-
one direction, 0.2 CFS in the other.
So if your model's accurately predicts the future, then the situation will be better.
Yes, however, this is a wetland, and once again, I've seen this existing, catch basin on the street pretty much always flooded. However, this is, the municipal drainage system and everything is low in this area. But yes, so from the contribution, the contribution of rainwater from this whole 4-property site, it will be decreasing both in peak rate of runoff and volume in both directions during every design storm event.
Any other questions, commissioners? Comments? Anything else from the audience, Charlotte?
Nope.
Okay. You have a list of conditions that you've prepared for this, Charlotte?
I think Chris and some commissioners wanted to walk the site actually.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Right.
Yeah. But I think Carmen,
Yeah,
did
so we're gonna ask for
you?
continuance and then
Yep.
and set up a
Yep.
site visit. I think that's a good idea.
And Carmen, you said you're okay with April 18th for the date?
I think so,
Okay,
yes.
and we'll touch base offline and we'll figure out a week that might work best, or a couple days that might work best once the surveyors get out there.
So,
Okay.
so just to be clear, Carmen, we are talking about the wetland flags. Are they still in place?
Yes,
Okay, and are there flags on the buffer zones and the
we don't have flags on the buffer zone, so should we put flags along the 50 and 100? Just the 50?
you don't have to do the whole length of them, but I think that within, say, 50 feet of the driveway, which is what we're talking about, and of the your southernmost infiltration chamber, that would be helpful.
Okay, so more or less from where the existing driveway is to the ledge?
Yeah, that'd be
Okay.
perfect. And then on the other side, just to the right of, or just to the southeast of pit 4, where
Okay,
there's
to
where
the
there's a band,
southeast
at
of
100.
Okay,
Yeah,
so,
right there.
okay,
If you could demarcate the infiltration
Yeah.
system, I don't know.
Boundaries of the infiltration chamber, the
Okay. The 4 corners?
yeah, 4 corners and also the outlet there,
Okay.
the overflow, and obviously the width of the driveway itself.
Okay, so you would like to see stakes along the
Yeah.
both sides of the driveway as well?
Yeah.
Okay, so that would be to the pavement, right? To the Cape Cod berm?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, along the entire length of the driveway?
Yeah, probably. We're going to get up there and walk it. So yeah, and actually both infiltration chambers. Yeah, we
Okay.
might as well see it all.
Yeah, and
Okay.
if you could mark the trees that you're gonna take out.
Okay, so that would be within the,
Yeah,
The 50 and the 100?
I'm sure we're going to have more questions about the trees before it's all done. So yes, please mark the trees that you intend to remove.
okay, so, but within the buffer zones, correct?
Oh,
Okay. Okay.
Well,
I'd like to see all the trees.
is that outside our jurisdiction
To see-
for
For a
stormwater?
site visit, that's tough, but I mean, Carmen did put trees of 12-inch caliber or greater, surveyed them on the plan outside of the 100-foot buffer to remain or to be removed. So at least in terms of the site plan requirements, she's met those, but in terms of a site visit, I don't know, but there is the general clause, we can ask for more information. So if you guys want them flagged, I don't think that's a,
Carmen, let's keep it on the safe side. Mark the trees that you're going to remove, at least as far as the end of the driveway.
Okay, so I'm just so that I am clear. As far as.
Okay, let's go back to your, there you go.
Mhm. So do you would you like our surveyors to flag all of the trees?
Certainly the ones within the buffer zones, absolutely.
Okay.
And Chris, you want to see more of them?
Because we will have the plans.
Yeah, but
within the
that's,
buffer zone, I mean, I guess.
sometimes
we'll
it's a
have
little
those.
hard when you're holding the paper plan and trying to figure out which tree is which between the plan and the real world. So it's,
Probably easier to mark the ones you're not taking out, but, yeah. Just the ones in the buffer zone, I guess, and we'll just assume the ones up the driveway are all going.
But
Actually,
also, Carmen, if it
there
might
are-
help,
you
you
know,
could stake the limit of work
that's what I
instead.
was thinking. That's what I was thinking. Just put the limit of work because we have some
Yeah.
trees that will be protected. So, you know,
Okay.
we could mark everything here within the buffer zone. And then beyond here, I could just have so it would be the 50, the 100, then the limit of work on both sides.
Yeah.
All of the trees within the 50 and the 100. And then actually within the limit of work outside of the 100-foot buffer zone, all of them will be, all of the ones that are over 12 inches, right, that are indicated here will be removed except for this two. So we can mark those two.
Okay, so yeah, we can identify the trees within the limit of work that are supposed to remain, and then we can kind of roughly assume on site that within that limit of work, the trees will be removed. And then obviously, yeah, I think it's definitely important to mark all of them in the buffer zone and then identify the ones that are to remain, because I think I did have a comment about like the tree protection guards and stuff.
Yes.
But yeah,
Which are
I think
marked
staking limit
here.
of work would be a good
Okay.
idea.
Okay, so we'll have just different color flagging. I might
Yes.
I have to get a bunch of different colors, but some, different flagging for the ones that will remain here and outside. And then the ones that will be removed here. And then
Mhm.
obviously for the buffer zones and the infiltration systems.
So this looking at this limit of work sort of prompts another question and for me, and that is why there are these bump outs like to the east of the southernmost infiltration chamber. You have a stockpile area. I see that. We'd
This,
like to see that outside of the 100. So you have a stockpile area, it says, and there's a leader to a, yep, right there.
Mhm.
So why isn't the limit of work set at the 100-foot there? I can understand why it's not when you get to the infiltration chamber, but what's
Mhm.
that bump out all about there?
Okay, no, it's really nothing. We can actually put it at the 100
Yeah,
buffer zone
good.
here.
And then there's another bump out to the south there. I mean, it's been
side.
very generous. The
Oh, right
limit of
here?
work is, it gets the farther into the buffer zones and even into almost the resource.
So
Very
this
wide.
was simply, this was simply because we're going to do grading here. And to put it in between the
Oh.
trees, but here, we can bring it down. We can bring it down.
Yeah,
Sure.
if we're talking about doing some grading in the 50-foot buffer, we need to talk about that.
Well, we are, because we're raising the grade. You see the 10-foot, the new 10-foot contour
Yeah, no, I
is in the
do see
50-foot
that.
buffer zone.
And so, but
That is,
the new contours don't extend nearly as far as your limit of work.
that is what I was saying, that I could bring the limit of work closer.
Yeah, like as close as you possibly can.
Okay, and also I can bring this closer here to match the 100-foot buffer zone for the stockpiling area.
I mean, the objective here is to do as much or as little disturbance in both buffer zones as possible. I mean, we're willing, I think, just speaking for me, I'm willing to accept that infiltration chamber can be in the 100-foot buffer, but it looks like the limit of work has been a bit generous to me. And,
Okay.
and if we approve that, of course, then, and we give you a variance for it, then we've just given you license to stray well away from your driveway. And I don't want to see that.
Okay. I
So
can
let's
have
pull
that
that limit of work
changed.
into the closest, as close as possible to where you're actually working.
Okay,
And since you are in the 50, we're gonna want a construction fence. I'm not talking about snow fence. I'm talking about chain link fence.
And
That
so,
really prevents any of your contractors from straying outside the limit of work.
so this is, this line in blue
Yeah.
is for that tall construction barrier.
Yeah.
And then the siltation fence around, actually along the entire length of the
Yeah.
limit of work is going to be a siltation fence and a silt sock. Inside here, closest to the wetlands, is going to be a silt sock with a tall fence, and we have a detail of that.
I think I'd like to see a fence wherever you're working in the adjacent to the, like you are there at A4, A5. First of all, it should never go to A5. It should go from A4 to where your gravel, where your fill intersects the,
Yes, so
original
it will be,
topography.
once I move the silt sock and silt fence, once I move it closer, then that tall barrier will be behind it.
Right.
Mhm.
But what I'd like to see is to see that construction fence run anywhere you're working in the buffer.
Okay, so along
That-
here as
that-
well?
There should be a construction fence that separates your work area from the
Mhm.
buffer.
Okay, so that would be
From the buffer where
including
you're not
the
working.
100-foot buffer?
Yes, all the way through
Okay.
the 100-foot buffer. That's right.
Okay,
Okay, so we're all set up for a site visit, and you understand what we want to see now. So,
yes.
okay,
Buffers, infiltration system, driveway, and then trees in the buffer zones and the trees to remain outside.
right.
And
And-
limit of work too.
And the limit of
Yep.
work.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, we'll touch base, Carmen. And then we'll, you
Thank
said
you.
418 is acceptable for continuance?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
let's do that. So 418. And then also I will repeat everything via email so that we have
Yep.
something in writing to go by, and I can just forward that to the surveyors.
Thank you. Yep.
Thank you.
Okay. So next is,
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Thanks, Carmen.
you're welcome, is a public hearing for NOI 2405, a stormwater permit 2408, 74 Black Horse Lane, talking about a single-family dwelling and driveway. In accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40 of the Cohasset Wetlands Bylaw and the Cohasset Stormwater Bylaw, the Cohasset Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, March 21st, 2024, at 6:30 p.m. via remote participation on a Zoom platform for NOI 2405, stormwater permit 2408 at 74 Black Horse Lane. The public hearing is now open. Charlotte, you want to?
Yeah, so we have Steve Callahan, the applicant and owner of 74 Black Horse Lane, and Jeff Hassett from Morse Engineering.
All right, thank you very much. This is an NOI filing and a stormwater permit for 74 Black Horse Lane. And I'll share my screen and go over the project. So this property is just under 1 acre in size. It was subdivided recently from the lot to the left on the page on number 70 Black Horse. And the property is, for the most part, well, it's entirely developed. There aren't any wooded areas on the property. It's developed with a barn right here and paved driveways being these portions that are hatched. The barn is currently being renovated to be a single-family home. And the resource areas on the property slopes back towards the Gulf. And right along the Gulf, there's an old stone wall. It's about 4 feet tall. And at the toe of that slope, there's a portion of salt marsh over here. And then the top of that wall would be considered a coastal bank. And in areas, due to the topography, that coastal bank actually comes up higher than the bank up to that blue line here, shown here. And then the 50-foot buffer to the coastal bank is shown in red here, and the 100-foot buffer in green. The Gulf River is considered a perennial river or perennial stream. Therefore, it is the 100-foot inner riparian riverfront area is here in magenta, and the 200-foot riverfront area is in magenta as well. And the FEMA floodplain is elevation 9 that flows behind the barn here. So the proposed work is going to be, interior renovations to the barn itself. Well, that does not require an NOI filing. The site work includes removing 4,256 square feet of asphalt, which is this area here. This is a garage for the house next door, which once renovated, that will no longer be a garage, so there won't be doors on that end. And then they're proposing a proposed addition here, which, as you can see, other than that little corner, is completely within the footprint of the asphalt that's being removed. Let me zoom in a little bit too. The other work is running utilities, reconfiguring the paved driveway. A very small addition within that nook between the house and the greenhouse. And then removing a brick patio right here. It's brick and concrete mortar in between the bricks, so it's totally impervious. That'll be removed. So to summarize the project, we feel it can be approved. I know otherwise we wouldn't file this. For the reasons that the addition, again, is in an area that's completely impervious driveway right now, other than that one corner. It ends up being the net same amount of impervious within the 200-foot riverfront area. We're removing and adding equal amounts. Within the 100-foot inner riparian zone, it's a reduction in impervious. None of the work is in that FEMA floodplain behind the barn. And with the exception of that small addition and removing the brick with concrete, none of the work is within the 50-foot buffer to the salt marsh or the 50-foot buffer to the coastal bank. It's a reduction in impervious within the 50-foot buffer because that patio is being removed. All the work is landward of that structure, and we're proposing a water quality swale. So that's a swale along the property line with a check dam to hold the water back and let it infiltrate into the ground and treat the runoff before it reaches the Gulf, where currently there's no stormwater treatment or mitigation. And then we have the standard erosion controls at the limit of work. So with that, actually, let me zoom. Show you some photos as well. So this is the property here. This is the house next door, the barn, and the greenhouse. This is a portion of driveway that's going to be removed, and then the new driveway comes in like that with the addition going right here. This is the barn. Again, the addition is sitting right here in the asphalt. From about that crack in the asphalt back this way, that's all the asphalt being removed. And then looking back the other way, this is the other portion of asphalt being removed. And I'll pass that back to you.
Okay. Charlotte, do you have any comments before the commissioners?
Yeah, I can summarize those. So I did have some comments about the resource area delineation for the coastal bank. They did use Mass DEP policy 92.1 for, I think it was figure 4, Jeff. So, that's why the line, that's how the line was determined. The salt marsh wasn't flagged by wetland scientists, but it was surveyed by Morse on site using their survey instruments. And then I did clarify that, this is all right now, as you see, if you look on the assessor maps, it's 70 Black Horse Lane, but they have an A&R that just split the lot, and that this 74 Black Horse Lane address will be assigned later in the year or early next year, I think. I did have some questions about clarifying the degraded areas. So Jeff and his team did address those. I just had some questions on a few of them. But then in terms of the degraded areas and the proposed work in those degraded areas, at least for me, I think it could be clarified just a little bit of where all that is. I don't know, Jeff, if you want to zoom in, if you can kind of show us that. But then I just had one remaining question. So the pavement that's being removed on what's now left of 70 Black Horse Lane,
yep.
you have submitted a separate RDA for that, so that will be on the next meeting. But that portion of pavement being removed on 70 Black Horse Lane, is that being counted on 74, or have you now split it all up in terms of your calculations?
It is being included in this application. So, we're removing, what number I tell you, 4,256 square feet of degraded, which includes this area and this area. That's how we originally proposed it. And I think in your comments, you noted that, that property isn't part of this application. So rather than amend this application to include both lots, we've just followed up with an RDA application to remove this asphalt and put down loam and seed. So as a project in a whole, it ends up being the same amount of impervious. And then the definition of degraded, the DEP definition is void of topsoil. In this case, the degraded areas are, the roof area, the paved driveway, and this brick patio, which that brick patio is concrete in the joints, so it's completely impervious. So degraded and impervious are really one and the same on this project.
Jeff, it wasn't clear whether you are counting the square footage of the area of asphalt on somebody else's property in your calculations here.
So it works out to be an increase of 700 square feet on this property, but we're proposing 700 square feet to be removed on the lot next door.
Yeah. So you're trading off somebody else's property for this one. That doesn't seem kosher to me.
Well, in this case, if you go to the aerial, the project is it's all one property, really. It's in common ownership.
Well,
That's
actually,
the driveway.
It's two separate lots. So I don't know.
It is two separate lots, but this was the accessory structure to this home. It's a driveway joining, and it's still in the same ownership.
So the same person owns both lots?
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know. Charlotte, how does this work? It just seems like
Did we not, can we just go back to the delineation before we go in? Don't we require delineation? And what was that about instruments they used on site? Is that supposed to meet the requirement, or does it meet the requirement, Charlotte?
It's a good question of whether or not it meets the requirement. I mean, they did survey the resource area, and they put, I think, Jeff, sorry, you might have to add the 100-foot buffer, but they did add the 50-foot buffer to the salt marsh from that survey on the plan. But typically when we see salt marsh and wetland delineations, it's done by professional wetland scientists with the flags. But I know that, as Jeff had clarified in his responses, they didn't do that because the salt marsh was evident on the site.
It's evident, and the controlling resource area is the coastal bank. The retaining wall is right here. It's the old stone wall, which is about 4 feet tall, and the top of coastal bank either follows that or it's up here, up gradient. That's our real 50-foot buffer. Well, the most restrictive 50-foot buffer. At the toe of that slope, there's an obvious location of salt marsh here that we feel located, salt marsh grass here, and salt marsh grass here. So we feel located those. They're obvious in the field, and they're obviously not going to be upgrading to that retaining.
And their buffer zones would fall within the buffer zone for the coastal bank.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I don't see how it would change how we view this if we had another 50-foot buffer that's north of the existing 50-foot buffer you put in, a 100-foot buffer.
Yeah, we are showing the 50-foot buffer. This is the 50-foot buffer here to the
that
salt
50-foot
marsh.
buffer is based on the salt marsh? It is, right?
Yeah, it is. It's 50 feet off of this pocket of salt marsh, and then this is 50 feet off that area of salt marsh in that area, which it's labeled here and here.
You're going to use if you're going to use that line, it seems like you have to have a valid wetlands delineation.
It does seem to be that's what we require in our regs, that all delineations have to be compliant with Mass DEP methodology.
I mean, it won't change, and it's kind of, and if it does change, it wouldn't have an effect on this project either way. If that's something you want us to do, though, we obviously will.
Seems like just to be in compliance with our bylaws, yeah, you probably better do it.
Okay, sure.
So back to using, getting credit for removing asphalt on a separate lot. That doesn't seem quite right to me. How does that affect your calculations, Jeff, if you do not count removing that pavement? I'm all for removing the pavement, by the way, but you can count it on the lot that it's being removed on, but I don't see how you can count it on the lot that it's not being, that it doesn't exist on. So how does that change, or does it change any of your regulatory limits here?
Well, it would be on this lot, it would be a 700 square foot increase in impervious.
Okay.
But going back, I mean, these lots are in common ownership. I mean, we could file an NOI for both lots, make it one application if that's cleaner. I don't see why it. I mean, regardless, it's impervious being removed from the riverfront area. It's a net equal. If anything, down the road, it might hurt the redevelopment of the lot next door because they can't take credit for that. They can't double dip that. But it's an equal amount of impervious in the riverfront area.
It seems like a bad precedent. I mean, so what if this person owned 2 lots and they weren't adjacent? You couldn't obviously count that.
Well, think of it as mitigation. It's mitigation for the 700 square foot increase in impervious.
On a
You do
separate lot.
occasionally. You do, yeah. Which is nothing that says you can't do mitigation offsite. It just has to be within the proximity of the same resource area.
Proximity, how close? I mean, how proximal?
Well, within the buffer zone.
I mean, if
within
there
that
was-
same buffer zone.
if
It's not like we're mitigating adjacent to some other wetland elsewhere in town.
Doesn't strike me as being correct to do this. Charlotte, is there any clarification in our bylaws or regulations that would allow this?
My knowledge, not in our bylaws or regs, but just looking at the redevelopment standards, you can choose to mitigate and restore offsite, but it just has to follow all the parameters. So right now, they're removing pavement and replacing it with just loam and seed. At least in the, in terms of when an applicant proposes restoration on site of a degraded riverfront area, and then it also mentions offsite, you have to remove all debris, grade to, topsoil, seed and plant with erosion control seed mix, followed by plantings, herbaceous and woody species appropriate to the site. So I can double check the regs again. I don't know if it's necessarily like that he can't do this. I think it just has to follow all the steps as specified in 310 SAMR 10.585 for redevelopment of the riverfront. But
Okay.
I think I don't know. I would kind of lean towards it might be. I mean, Jeff mentioned he has submitted an RDA for the separate work occurring on the separate lot. But I think if you wanted to revise the notice of intent to include both properties, I think that might be a little cleaner, but I'll defer to Jeff and the applicant on that. But I think it makes sense for this if you are going to put, you know, in I think it just makes a cleaner sense. And then you can definitely double check me on the redevelopment standards and the regs, Jeff. But I think we might need a little bit more mitigation too if you are going to do that, not just loam and seed.
Okay, we can look into that.
But I guess, does the commission have a strong preference one way or another? Because like I did note this in my comments that obviously some of the work is occurring on a different parcel. So they submitted an RDA, but does the commission have a preference to combining it in one NOI application? I mean, it's the same applicant, so he'll be the signature for both properties. But does the commission have a strong preference to review the work on the abutting parcel as an RDA or an NOI? I know that's obviously not the point of this hearing tonight, but you know, if we're revising the NOI tonight, do we want it to include 70 Black Horse Lane? And I can follow up with Jeff offline about the RDA we haven't seen.
So would it then get recorded against both properties, the registry?
Yes,
Even if it's one application for both addresses?
correct. So when the order is recorded, it'll go against both properties.
So let's talk about the driveway that is in the new proposed driveway, some of which is in the outer riverfront zone. It's a little bit hard to see because the lines are the same weight and color, but I think what I'm seeing there is some sort of turnaround outside the garage. And then, yeah, okay.
Yep.
Yeah, what's the width of that driveway?
12 feet.
12 feet. And you are accounting for that by removing the impervious driveway just to the west of that, right?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. And trees to be removed.
There's one tree right here, an 18-inch caliper. I couldn't tell what type it was without the leaves on it, but it's some sort of, you know, ornamental tree that was planted a long time ago.
Okay.
And we're proposing 2 red maples as mitigation.
Okay. Any other trees being removed?
Nope. I'm sorry. There's also an evergreen here, an 18-inch pine tree.
Okay, so you're gonna, how are you gonna replicate that or mitigate that?
Same, two additional trees being
Oh,
planted.
so 1 for 1 is what you're proposing here.
Yeah, sorry, I overlooked this evergreen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay,
1 for 1 in the resource areas is we usually look for at least 2 for 1.
Yeah.
Since they're in the resource area.
Sure.
looks like you got plenty of room for a few more trees there.
Yeah, we can increase that.
So the limit of work here, Jeff, is the you want to trace that out with your cursor, please?
Yep. So over here, it goes around to here. You know, looking at it now, we could really tighten that up and tie it in, you know, right outside the 50-foot buffer.
Good.
And then over here on this side, we have an erosion barrier at the 50-foot buffer tying into the existing structure and then running down the property line.
Okay, so I don't see a limit of work then for the new driveway.
Yeah, we really don't define that. We have grading out to this location here. So, you know, that would say out to here, but I can add a limit of work line all the way around.
So why do you need to grade so far away from the driveway? Again, I'm looking at the outer front.
Yeah, we're taking a slight cut through this area so that but yeah, we can tighten up that 16 contour, get it closer to the utilities in the driveway.
Okay. Yeah, let's keep this all to the absolute minimum of disturbance. And so you have a very generous work zone. And I realize that you've got to get heavy equipment in here from time to time to do it, but it seems overly generous right now. So if you could tighten that up, that'd be good. Everywhere you can.
Yeah, we'll define the limit of, right now we just have the erosion barrier.
Yeah.
But we'll show the limit of work line all the way around and, yeah, like you said, tighten it up.
And again, we'd like to see a hard structure, like chain link fence. Since you're working in the buffer zone and riverfront, so that there's no ambiguity to your contractors about where they can go and where they can't.
Yeah.
Snow fence and flags don't seem to be sufficient in this town to discourage people, particularly landscapers, from driving where they probably shouldn't. So we're sort of tightening up on this. We really do want to see something that is unambiguous.
Really, chain link fence around this?
Well,
what about like orange? What about construction fencing? Like,
yeah, construction fence. Yeah, it doesn't have to be
like the plastic orange fencing?
snow fence.
No fence. Yeah.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of that run over, That doesn't seem to be much of doesn't seem to discourage heavy equipment operators all that much, or contractors who like.
I mean, it's a
park
blatant
their
violation.
cars
if you go
out on the
beyond
lawn,
it.
whatever. You could probably pour a couple of boxes of nails along the snow fence if you want.
I mean, I guess we could debate
honestly,
it all day. I would say
you need something. I think you need something that's more substantial than snow fence.
I've seen the tall orange construction fencing in projects like this that are close to riverfront, or in riverfront. I can talk to Jeff offline about this, but
Yeah.
I think you could probably do a combination.
Yeah.
But I think a nice tall orange fence will make it very obvious where people can and can't go. But there are some slopes on this property, so maybe there are some ways where we could kind of modify the barriers depending on what we need. But yeah, I think at least I've seen the tall orange fence in other projects, and that seems it's
Okay.
definitely taller than a black silt fence, that's for sure.
It's pounded in the ground too, whereas a chain link fence, I've seen them be moved by the contractors, push them back a little bit.
Oh yeah,
So I'd rather have it staked into the ground.
you're not helping yourself here, Jeff.
I don't think a chain link fence is
Maybe-
appropriate.
maybe
here.
we need to think of-
They can be moved around. They can blow over in the wind.
Yeah, so maybe
Uh,
we need
I
Well,
think
good,
if somebody moves an
So,
orange fence, that's a clear violation.
Yeah.
It's obvious to the contractor. They
Well,
should-
this is what we're trying to avoid is
Yeah.
a violation, because once the damage is done, it's really it's not too late, but it's late in the day, and we would rather there weren't any disturbance that we had to revisit and chastise anybody about.
Sure.
So
I guess while we're on,
I would
sorry.
assume that in the larger scheme of things, the budget for doing a house like this, that a robust construction fence is a rounding error.
While we're on the topic of, construction and whatnot, where you're removing the existing brick patio that's within the 50-foot, there'll obviously be particular attention paid to how that's being removed and whatnot, since the work's being done within the 50-foot.
Yeah, it would be a small mini excavator or bobcat, scraping off the top, removing the concrete and bricks, and then the sub-material is probably crushed stone. Putting that in the dump truck, the dump truck would pull in right here, they'd fill it up, and then they would spread loam and seed. We don't have an erosion barrier around that because I think it's a pretty quick project in a flat area. But I could think about adding a silt fence just in that, to protect that small area when they do it.
It looks like there's a bit of a slope there. Looking at those contour lines, just
Well, the patio itself is flat. Beyond it, it slopes off. There's a
yeah. So if you get a serious rainfall while that raw soil is exposed, it has a place to flow down into the Gulf River there. So I
yeah.
think
So I'll put a silt fence around it.
And Jeff, I don't think you're taking that wall out or changing grade in that area. It's just the removal of the patio and replacement with vegetative cover.
Exactly, scraping off the top 6 inches plus or minus exactly where the patio is and putting down loam, seeding it.
Okay.
Thank you.
So there's another dashed line there that and it's got it says something on it. It's right by that replace loam and seed at the brick patio, but I can't quite read it. Right where your cursor was.
Building
Yeah,
envelope,
there you go. Oh, building envelope.
zoning setback to the property line.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah, good. Okay, so then the way your current limit of work, it joins that, like I said, it'd be a southeast corner of the building, of the barn. And then rejoins, it leaves the site on the edge of the new addition. That seems to be maybe an error. Or
Right
not.
here?
Yeah.
Oh,
Don't you
Yeah, the
need a
intent
little
was,
bit- don't you need a little
the
bit more
intent was
room
to
there?
keep, to define a limit of work at the 50-foot buffer, but yeah, this asphalt's being removed
Yeah,
and they're putting in a foundation, so we'll tie it in right along the edge of the asphalt.
okay. All right, any other questions, commissioners?
Yep, I just have a couple.
Go ahead.
So anything within the 200-foot requires variance, is that right? The riparian, the riverfront.
So any work within the 50-foot buffer is one variance, and then greater than 1,000 square foot of alteration of a resource area is another variance that Jeff has also filed.
More than
It's all
1,000 feet?
resource area in general, so it's like, riverfront, subject to coastal storm flowage, like greater than 1,000 square feet of resource areas.
But also, I think our, I don't know if it's regulation or bylaw says no new construction in the 100-foot riverfront.
So for new construction, we have something in our regulations for riverfront specifically. But this is a redevelopment project, so I think if it was like new house construction, obviously that's different. But yeah, I think that the
New means there was nothing there before.
yes, so that would be like in relation to the general performance standards in the Wetlands Protection Act, not the redevelopment standards.
Okay. So there are two variances then that
Yes.
applied for here. So what is, Jeff, this is for Jeff then, what is rare and unusual about this that requires these two variances?
Yeah, so what's rare and unusual is that this is, a barn that was built in 1876. It predates the Wetlands Protection Act. And so it's an existing non-conforming structure within the buffer zone, as well as the paved driveway. And the intent is to keep that barn. And what's unique about this site is that we're able to build an addition that's completely within, other than that corner, asphalt. And we can reconfigure the driveway in such a way that it is a net same amount of impervious within the riverfront area. And this property is completely developed. There's no wooded areas on the lot. So if this was a vacant lot, we wouldn't have the house within the buffer zone. It's pre-existing, dating well before the Wetlands Protection Act.
Yeah, I don't think it's rare and unusual, but I think if we were to approve this, we would probably want more significant improvement to the closer buffer areas. So I know there was some mention of 2-to-1 mitigation instead of 1-to-1, and probably a different seed mix other than loam over there where we're taking out the patio. So I don't know specifically what we'd want to see beyond that, but I think being that there's so much of this requiring variances, we'd want to see more improvement to those closer buffers, the 50 and the 100 riverfront.
Okay, we can look into that.
Understood that, sorry, forgot to say this. Understood though that, I mean, debating whether that pavement on the other lot counts or not, your overall lowering the impervious and improving overall, depending on whether we count that next door neighbor or not. I understand that. Got it.
So doesn't sound like we're quite ready to do anything other than continue here. You've got a bit of work to do, Jeff.
Yeah, we do. So I would suggest we push it out 2 weeks. I mean, I'm sorry, 2 meetings, if that's okay with you.
That sounds good.
Sorry, would that be May 2nd, Jeff, or do you want April 18th? Are you thinking like on not the next meeting, but the following meeting? Or are you thinking like 2 additional meetings from now? So that would be the May 5th.
No, April 18th, so about a month.
April 18th. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was trying to do math in my head and I had 2 different answers.
Yeah, April 18th.
Okay. So do we have any, before we move on, do we have any further questions from either the audience or commissioners? Any closing comments on this, Charlotte?
No, I'm happy to just talk to Jeff online. Maybe we can think of a nice combination of erosion barriers of different kinds and where to put it. And I think we just need to look a little bit more at, for the variance request under our regs specifically, but then also just looking through the redevelopment standards and the Wetlands Protection Act. I think we just need to see some more mitigation on the site here. So we can get the details of that, I think, for the next meeting, hopefully. And Jeff, obviously happy to work with you offline.
Okay, thank you very
This
much.
would also be an addition, not just for the Wetlands Protection Act, but I think it would also be, for the commission to potentially consider variance requests here.
Okay.
So I have one last question, and that's, I think I've already asked it, and you probably answered it, but just to be sure, if you cannot count the impervious on the other lots, how much is that going to change your plan? Presumably.
Well, if we can't include these 2 areas, that's 700 square feet, which we would have to either find a way to provide some sort of other mitigation for, maybe it's plantings, making the driveway smaller, which I don't think is really feasible. The driveway can't be narrower coming in.
No.
And it's a long driveway. You need to be able to turn around and have some extra parking.
Right.
So
it really isn't.
I prefer to keep that in my calculation, but
You could make the driveway pervious though, like some sort of stone.
Let me talk to the client about that.
So what I'm asking for, Jeff, here is not a straw man, but a real alternative.
Jeff, I think you submitted, did you submit an alternatives analysis? I think you did, but maybe
We did.
you might need to clarify that a little bit more.
The alternatives.
Some of the, based on some of the
And was
discussions
the
you had.
alternative based on not being able to use the credit for removing the impervious on the other lot? Specifically?
I guess I don't follow the question.
So if you provided an alternative plan,
Oh, okay.
was that alternative based on not being able to use the credit that you're counting on from removing the impervious on the other lot?
No, because we were assuming, that could be included. It's
Okay.
being right next to our.
So I guess what I'm asking for is an alternative where you do consider
Okay.
not being able to get the credit for removing the impervious on the other lot.
Understood. Okay.
Okay, great. Okay, sounds like we're all set. Last chance to clarify things, Jeff, if you don't have it clear. Well, I suppose you can clarify it with Charlotte.
Yeah, no, I think they're great comments. I appreciate all the thoughts on this, and I have them listed here. So we'll see if we can take care of them in the next 2 or 3 weeks.
Okay.
Talk about them on the 18th.
All right. So I assume you're not going away because the next public hearing is for NOI 24-674 Black Horse Lane for the pier.
Correct.
Oh, and Tom, can you read the public notice?
Oh, yeah, I better read it in. Okay, in accordance with Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and Cohasset Wetlands Bylaw and the Cohasset Stormwater Bylaw, Cohasset Conservation Commission will hold a public hearing on Thursday, March 21st, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. via remote participation on a Zoom platform for NOI 2406 at 74 Black Horse Lane. The public hearing is now open.
Okay. So same property, same applicant, same engineer. They have an existing pier located here, which they have a valid Chapter 91 permit for, so it's pre-existing, fully permitted. That Chapter 91 permit is for the pier only. It does not have a gangway or a float. So that's what we're proposing at this point. The Chapter 91 permit does require them to maintain the pier in good condition. So they are going to do some repairs to it, including replacing the 4 piles and then adding, and so that's the only work to the pier that requires, that would disturb the ground. And then they're adding an aluminum gangway that's 3 feet wide by 30 foot long, and then a 10 foot wide by 20 foot long float. In this case, the float will float at all tides. Even at low tide, it'll have anywhere from 18 inches to 3.5 feet of water underneath it. It doesn't have any float stops. So pretty simple, adding a gangway and a float. This is the first stop. We'll be going to DEP Waterways and Army Corps of Engineers as well.
Charlotte?
So I think some of the comments from the other project were about the salt marsh delineation. So I assume that it'll be, I don't know if the commission, has agrees with that for this project too, but, and then,
Is
Jeff,
the
you clarified that the,
condition
sorry?
of the stone, sorry, is it the same condition with the stone wall where it seems like we're in the resource now, so right, wouldn't the delineation be more pertinent to this section?
Yeah, we've already determined we're going to have it delineated. So this will be flagged. I guess I would request we end up continuing this project to the same meeting on the 18th, and we'll get that flagged in the meantime.
Yeah, and I think we do have a file number for this one, but I think the comments that were still pending were from DMF. You did submit the submission to DMF. I just don't think we've heard back from them yet, unless you just got the letter today. I didn't see it. And then the existing Chapter 91 license with the existing pier. I don't think the existing pier right now is at the height width ratio of 1.5 to 1. That seems to be kind of like it's not a regulatory standard quo, but the recommended standard quo between like DMF and Army Corps and, other agencies. So I don't know if DMF is going to have those comments, but that would be something to look at. If we're reconstructing the pier in the same place, you may or may not need to consider raising it a little bit to kind of meet that. Seems to be a consistent recommendation amongst all the state and federal groups. But other than that, I think those are really the only 2 comments I had. But I did notice on site, I mean, I don't know what happened, obviously, but underneath the pier, there's really no marsh grass. So I don't know, if this has obviously just been a salt marsh in dire straits for a long time. But you're putting the piers back in the pilings back in the same places. So, but yeah, just right now the salt marsh looks a little, I don't know, damaged.
So Charlotte, while you're digging up a picture of that,
I have a photo right here. I can share
you
it.
do. Oh, okay. Good.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Chapter 91 permit. And here's the pier, salt marsh, and that's probably the area.
Yeah, I mean, you definitely see the grass, obviously, further up a bit, but yeah, right under the pier, it's, looks like it's pretty shady. So I don't know if that's the reason or if it was just from erosion, maybe a combination. But that's another reason why I may or may not, I think it might be good to see if DMF has that recommendation. And if you do have to go through an amendment for the existing license, if they want to see that change, I don't know. So I think it's something worth considering.
Well, I think we would want to see it. I mean, based on what we're seeing right here, I mean, we've seen that recommendation as being adopted through the agencies. If they don't require it,
Mhm.
we're not going to require it. But I think it's the new standard, and you can see obviously the shading right here and the result of that. I think that I can't really tell, but it looks like that whole thing is going to have to be replaced. So if they're replacing the pilings, it would make sense to meet the new standard.
Yeah, Jeff, so you're
Or
gonna
not the new
replace the deck
standard.
and the piles and the rails, right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So it's gonna be, all of it's gonna be brand new. So,
Yeah, but keep in mind here, this is a pre-existing fully permitted pier.
Right.
Constructed per its permit, and under the permit, it says it shall be maintained in good repair.
Yeah,
So
well,
they have the right to repair this thing.
yeah,
We're not proposing, it's not no, this is an existing pier.
yeah, and science has shown that the ratio is not resulting in like you can see the picture. It's the marsh is dead underneath it, and that's why they've changed the standard. So if they're going to replace it, we're within our right to, I think, say that we should, raise it up so
I
that
don't-
there's more sunlight getting under there.
I don't, if it were just a replacement, I would agree with Jeff that we can't tell them what to do, but you're asking for a float and an extension, which includes a variance and everything else, so. In asking for that, I think it's fair that we ask this to be improved to the standard that is in place today.
it's an opportunity, Jeff, for the landowner to be a good steward of the marsh here. You're gonna rebuild it anyway. Why not rebuild it to the new standard? Talk to your client, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Well,
Right.
I can't commit to that right now, but let me talk to them.
Appeal to their better environmental angels here.
What does that look like? How much higher is that? Was it
Well,
rated?
the DEP recommends 1-to-1 and DMF recommends 1.5-to-1. So if it was 3 feet wide, it would be 4.5 feet off the ground.
And it's
Measured
what,
to
about
the
3
bottom
now,
of
right?
the stringers. So I would say they would have to go about 2 feet higher.
Yeah.
In the long run, they might be happy they did it.
We'll look into it.
Good. Okay, where are we at on this? I guess we're gonna wait, we have to at least wait for your delineation, your wetlands delineation before we can move forward on this. So this would be continued to also to April 18th, Jeff?
Yes, please.
Okay,
My only remaining note, and it didn't seem like it was, since it's in the harbor master's jurisdiction as well, at the moment, she doesn't have any comments, but Jeff, if I do get anything from her, I'll let you know. I mean, it's only a gangway and a float. She knew which dock, which pier we were talking about. So if I do get any comments from her, I'll let you know. I'll just remind her that this permit application is being processed, but usually she has comments here and there, depending on, where it is in Little Harbor or in the Gulf.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
okay. We're ready to move on?
All right. Well, thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Steve.
All right. Thank you,
Yeah.
everyone.
Have a good
Thank
night.
you.
You too. Thanks.
So next, we're going to resume the public hearing for stormwater permit 2401. It's been continued from February 1st. And this is for 26, 28, 30, and 32 Lambert's Lane. You ready to go, Charlotte?
I don't have Alton yet. Yep, well, he's declining for whatever reason, but I'm trying to promote him.
Probably hit the wrong button. Try it again. I'll call him.
So, for the record, John Orman, is on the call, applicant for the project. And then, Mr. McGregor, can you please state your name and affiliation for the record? And then Alton Stone from, oh my gosh, Alton, I'm forgetting your company name, but yeah, Alton Stone Engineering, I think.
I believe he's at Alton Engineering. I'm Gregor McGregor. Thanks for letting me introduce myself to the commission. My law firm is McGregor, Legere, Stevens in Boston. We work on environmental law, land use, real estate, and related appeals and litigation. And I'm here representing your applicant, John Ormond. He's asked our advice over the last several weeks about how best to meet your requirements and expectations, your conditions and requests. And you can assume I've told him to try his best to do so. So we're here for another continued hearing session in that spirit. Thank you.
Thank you. And then Alton, we do see you and you're muted. Do you want to start us off here? This is, as the commission, as we've reiterated, this is just for the stormwater permit 2401.
I'm not getting you or anything here at the moment. Are you hearing
Well,
me?
we can hear you.
Okay, I'm not seeing everyone there. I'm not seeing the commission. I want to be a panelist, not an attendee, please, okay?
Yep,
I
you're a
wanna be-
panelist.
All right, well, where am I here then, Charlotte?
It might be your view. You might be, you might have to, at least our view is all people who are panelists right now, but I don't know if your screen has the same thing.
No, it doesn't.
You have to click the Zoom button down on the bottom right, Alton.
Bottom right or left? I just clicked the lower one on the left. It says ZM. It's the blue one.
I think if you go to the view button and you go to gallery, because that's the view that we're on. So the view is like a little 3x3 dotted square, and you might be just on speaker mode. So you have to click gallery view and then you can see everybody.
I'm sorry, where do I get to that?
It should be in like either the top right or top left corner. It'll say sign in and then there's a button for view, and you might have to just open that up and change it to gallery mode. If you're on your phone, that is a little bit more difficult to find, but if you're on your computer, you should be able to see the view option somewhere in the top right. Or maybe down on the bottom for you. I don't know if anybody else can help me here. I'm the host, so my view may look different. But if you can't find that, Alton, we can hear you, we can see your name, we can't see your video, but we can see you. So I don't know if you want to just kind of start us off here with the documents that you revised for the stormwater submission.
Are you bringing them up or?
I can. Did you want me to bring up the plans?
Yes, what would we like to talk about? That's it, I can't see anything. I just got a big thing that says Zoom.
Can you see this?
Whole-
Can
The
everyone
whole
can
screen
see?
says Zoom, it says nothing else. Very
Can
frustrating.
you see the plans right now?
No, I can't see anything. All I
Yeah.
see is Zoom, a big blue Zoom on a white background.
I'm not sure. I don't know.
Alton, if you just move your cursor around on your screen, it'll light up all of the controls for you. And
I'm
if
moving
you-
it around, but I'm not. I want to start video here, is that it?
No. Oh, well, if you start the video, then we can see you.
Well, I
That
just
might
got
be
a
a
big
good
blue,
start.
I got a white screen that says Zoom, that's it.
Yeah, the white screen, if you scroll down on it, it might have the plan, because she brought up the
Oh,
plan already.
I have a feeling that if you minimize your white screen, probably the Zoom screen that you want to be looking at is behind that.
Oh, there it was. I don't know where that other thing came from. Now I see you, sir. I see you, Tom, now at least.
Oh, good.
I
yeah.
don't know what I hit now to do this thing, no view. Is
And
that? what's
can you
supposed to
see
be?
the Alton? Can you see the plans?
Yes, very,
um,
very small on like a quarter of the screen.
Okay. You You might be on speaker view. I'm trying to, yeah, I don't know if you see like a viewing button somewhere in the top right or something, but
I do
you
on
might be,
top right. View.
okay. And maybe click that and then switch to, hold on.
Gallery.
Maybe, yeah, try that. I'm sharing my screen right now, so you should just see hopefully my screen, but if you switch to gallery, that you'd be able to see most of us.
I see, yeah, you and then down through Kathy to Tom, and then Greg
Yep.
McGregor.
Yeah,
Okay, and do you see the
Will
screen,
Allison.
do you see the plan too?
Yeah, but
Okay.
it's just little and tiny there. It's like as big as one
try
of your.
to- I can try to zoom in. So I guess, so, Alton, do you want to give the commission an update on the test pits that were all performed, the stormwater document changes that you made per the commission's comments and our comments and my comments? And then just clarify what other documents you've updated for the commission? I can, I don't know what's easier, whatever you prefer first, but I think that would be the stuff we'd probably want to go over.
If
Well, the
you go-
commission was there, I believe, when we excavated the test pits in the.
Nope, it was just me.
Was it just you? No, the ones when we were for the infiltration systems?
Yep,
for
that
the
was just me.
galleries? Okay, well,
and,
We
and
had-
just a reminder, Alton, that's all we're talking about here is the stormwater permit. We're not talking about the NOI or the show cause or any of that. Strictly
Right,
the stormwater
certainly.
permit.
all right, sir. I'm gonna be talking through you, Mr. Bell. I think I'm supposed to, aren't I? In a fashion?
You're talking to the commission.
Okay,
So Charlotte, can you scroll down to the stormwater plan? This is the utilities plan. And I think there's some notes section on the bottom there and it shows all the updates that were made.
Yeah, that's the utilities.
Yeah, keep
scrolling
going down one more plan. Right there. Now, if you zoom down a little bit on that, you can see that there's a notes section on that plan. And right there's the notes right there, what was updated. So Alton, do you want to go over that section?
no, I don't right now. I wanna do the test pits, John. That's where we
Okay,
were.
okay. So yeah, go ahead and do
Okay.
the test pits then.
All right, I don't know the rest of that well anyway. I'll have to get down there, but let's do the test bits straightforward to get this rolling. What we did is we submitted a plan to the commission. I think the commission's request was that we would do a test pit at the location of each proposed recharge gallery. We had a series of Cultec recharge galleries. We also had the bioswales, which were intended to be recharge areas to a certain extent as well. But the key ones were the Cultec galleries. And we were requested by the commission to do a test pit there to take a look at the soil to confirm what the depth to the seasonal high water level was, which we usually do, and to get a good idea of the nature of the soil, the texture of the soil, and its suitability from that standpoint for recharge and in what we call infiltration, but under the model, the HydroCAD model, it's called exfiltration, which is a way of the water leaving the Cultec recharge system. And because then you can, once you have that texture, you then can obtain from a Rawls infiltration rate, which the DEP has published as a usable value to determine in there's several ways you can do it, but most commonly we use inches hour of water that is going to infiltrate into the soil from the bottom of the Cultec gallery based on that Rawls infiltration rate. And that's what you put into the model to calculate the amount of water, which is it's termed exfiltrate from the system into the ground and your recharge basically, and your loss of water that otherwise would be running out over the ground surface. So we serve 2 points with the gallery, actually 3 things. One, it does give you detention, if you will, because the chambers and the volume of stone hold a good deal of water. 2, it infiltrates and improves, your water table, the amount of water that's going in and not being lost by runoff. And it reduces the amount of runoff because you're infiltrating that water rather than having it flow in some other fashion off the roofs, let's say, to the ground, and then down the hill and right to the wetland or to the river. So you were doing this for 3 purposes, actually. And thus we went to a test pit in each one I think it was Mr. Bell requested that in particular, that we do that to do basically a soil evaluation of each proposed gallery. And that's commonly done by most municipalities now. They want an infiltration, they want a soil evaluator to do a soil review there at the point where you're going to have a recharge gallery. Very similar as if you're going to be having a septic system in. So you do the same type of soil evaluation. And I am an approved soil evaluator by DEP, so I performed the evaluations, and we filled out test pit logs for each one. And I believe, Charlotte, those were all submitted to you, if I'm not mistaken, in the department.
Yes.
You, the commission should have all of those logs for each of our test pits. And then we did not everyone was done with the mini excavator. Some were done using an auger because the soil was very shallow or awkward to get to if we want to, run that mini over the ledges and such. We did a few, I think, with auger, if I'm not, but those should be identified on that. Basically looking at, the soil profile to determine. I don't know how familiar the commission members are, but you determine the soil profile, which is the various horizons, which would be topsoil is what most people think of. That's the A horizon, then the subsoil, which is the B horizon, and then you have the C layer, which is a parent material. And in general, obviously, the A horizon is going to be removed. We're not putting an infiltration system on top of the ground. You dig down. You have to maintain I believe it's 2-foot separation from the seasonal high water table, if I'm not mistaken, Charlotte. You always have all these things
That's
right
correct.
at the top of your head.
Yes.
I think it's a 2-foot, and so you dig down and you get, you find your seasonal high water level, and that's determined by the coloration of the soil redoxymorphic values. And that at that point, that's the what you could call kind of the bottom of the system, if you will. It can't go any deeper than that because you have to have that 2-foot separation. And then you can put the stone up on top of that. I think we put in if you're building the system, a 6-inch layer of stone, or however you want to raise it, to raise the sort of the bottoms of the chambers, because then the bottoms of the chambers set on top of that stone. So that is enough of perhaps design of recharge galleries and what goes into it for the moment. But each of the houses, if I'm not mistaken, John can correct me, has a recharge gallery for the roof water. And that was the easiest to take care of because you have a impervious area there is regarded as clean water and can be infiltrated into the ground without having to go through extensive TSS removal. So that's why we took that, because there's a lot of square footage in the houses, and that worked pretty well. We take all of that and reduce our runoff value by putting it into the ground and achieving our recharge, if you will. So that was what happened in the test pits, and we did some also in the infiltration swales to look at the same reasoning there, because those are intended to infiltrate water as well as treat the water and carry water through them. They're basically long swales, if you will. And we have, if you look at the plan in a little bit, you can see the detail. There's sand and stone in them, and then organic materials, and then vegetation is planted in them to help treat the water, if you will.
Do you want to scroll down for the detail view there? Yeah, right there, yeah.
That's what we're proposing to put in. You can see several of them, in particular along the driveway. Is that something of this nature works well because you can tilt topographically, I should say, slope the driveway so that all the runoff goes into the infiltration swale, and it's very convenient. It goes there, and this, you can see this vegetation there suitable, hopefully, to a wet environment. It will maintain some water because of the mulch material and the organic material that's on the bottom of the swale. And then the stone on top, some stone to prevent erosion of the edges of the swale. There you can see there's a layer of, I think right at the top there, Charlotte. Yeah, as you're zooming in, some stone there on the top to prevent erosion and washing away. And then the stone usually at the bottom. And then the water from the swale goes through, is in the swale, and then it goes into this, what we're calling a drain. There's an under drain pipe that runs down through the bottom of the swale to collect the water, which filters through the swale and then takes it to this small catch basin. It's not really a catch basin, it's just a small PVC contained there that the water, it's like stilling basin, if you will, the water goes into, and then from there to a Cultex system, if I'm not mistaken. Correct, John? it then goes to a recharge system itself in order to, once we've treated the water there and slowed the runoff down, if you will, and taken a lot of runoff in storage, we're then going to recharge it at a later point, because rather than just have it run out and contribute to our peak runoff level, part of this whole deal is to reduce the peak runoff values, volume, and rate, so that our post rates are equal to or below those of obviously the existing conditions. So this is pretty much what the system consists of: the recharge galleries, Cultec galleries. I don't know if you have a picture of the Cultec galleries at all. Well, there's a soil profile. We also put in a stabilized construction entrance, which basically is all vehicles will go over that. It's like a stone rumble
Can I
street, if
ask
you
on
will,
the
to
bioswales before
maintain
we
a
move
good
on?
firm service when trucks.
Oh,
and
sorry,
heavy
Alton, one of our commissioners just had a
equipment are
question on
running
the
in and out of the site.
bioswales. Alton, sorry, one
Oh,
of our,
yes, okay,
yeah, so just had a question on the bioswales.
So
sure.
just before we move on from bioswales, one question was, why are two of them connected by a pipe, and why are none of the overflows shown on the plans?
There are, I believe, if you show up, there are some overflows for them, that, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, a lot of the water is going to the recharge system, which has an overflow. And I think if you zoom in here, you can see we did put some small points where the overflow could go out, and there were riprap dispersion aprons there, sort of rock dams where the overflow could go out of the swale. And let me see if I can pick one up in here.
Yeah, so all of the Cultecs, all of the bioswales connect to this one stilling basin here, and everything goes into this one recharge system under this driveway up here in the front on lot 2. And this is sized accordingly for the volume.
This 112 chamber or whatever this is system is taking the whole site's water.
Yeah,
No.
whatever. It's a little more than 12. I think it's in the HydroCAD plan exactly what it was. But it does take basically the driveway water for a certain percentage of the driveway, the right side of the driveway up on SC2, and all of the driveway, the private driveway and the common driveway on SC1.
Then you can see each of the hoses has one as well, each of the roofs. Charlotte may be able to zoom in on one of those. You can see, I think it's by number 3 there. Lot 4, number 32 house, there was, I think, a recharge gallery right there. They're fairly small.
So the intent is all the bioswales run into this one Cultec, and that Cultec has an overflow.
Yes, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if we have a diagram of that one.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Really
That's
hard
one
to
of the
see,
They all
but
have
yes.
they all have an eventual overflow, which
Okay.
is simply a.
And it's detailed in the HydroCAD model as well, because I went over all of this to make sure it all worked.
As the water comes up in the gallery, there's water coming continually in, let's say, from a roof. And as it builds up in the gallery, it comes to a level where it reaches the outlet overflow pipe, if you will. And water starts running out of that pipe. And in general, those were designed so that they would go out and have a spreader, if you will, such the water is spread out and then runs as overland flow down to where it eventually to one of the resource areas, because this is all downhill and eventually goes to a resource area because we have the river there. And eventually it slows down the rate of that flow and disperses it out over a larger grass or vegetated area, surface area, if you will. So that's all included in the model, and that's how that system is intended to work. This is all really directed toward, one, reducing the runoff rate such that the post is equal to or less than the pre. So that's what the main part of these systems in is. Also, you're required to do a certain amount of recharge for your impervious areas you're putting in, so that the Cultecs take care of both of those to a certain extent. We recharge, we detain water, and then we reduce the amount of runoff using those systems. Now I think you can see there, right there, if you see there's a 46. Maybe you can you zoom in on that, Charlotte, that 46 there? You see it there, contour 46? And you can see there's a light blue line, and then that's coming out of that's the overflow for the Cultec Gallery. And then it going to a rock apron there. So that's a pipe initially, and then it disperses through that rock apron, which disperses the water outward, so you don't have a concentrated stream that could contribute to erosion and scouring going right into a resource area further downhill.
So while we're on this, can we talk about your curve numbers as well, or were you going on to something else?
Well, first of all, any more questions or discussion on the elements of the stormwater system before we depart that and go on to perhaps the modeling and curve numbers, such?
Yeah, it looks like to me that you do have test pits everywhere except for your stilling basin. So sort of begs the question of whether the stilling basin is an infiltration device or a storage device that's going to overflow, and it looks like it would discharge from 51 feet down to 40 feet. Is that accurate?
I'm not quite.
You see, the stilling, first of all, the stilling basin does not have a test pit in it.
Well, it's not in itself actually intended to be a nil filtration. It's just it's where it collects. The pipes connect and goes then to the gallery.
That was my question. Is it? It's just a storage.
Yeah, a storage and a TSS removal. Some settling of the water, so that it just doesn't come right down the drain pipe on the bottom of the gallery. It goes into that basin first. It slows it down, and there's hopefully some TSS removal there.
So maybe have you prepared a table that relates each of these infiltration chambers to the test pit that it corresponds to, that we can see, so we get some notion of what the soil profile looks like and how much clearance above your high water mark is?
Yeah, a section of each test pit would be helpful to understand.
The logs, you mean? That's what we prepared logs, and
good.
It actually was originally was suggested that the test pit logs go on that plan you just saw.
Yeah,
and
we can see where we can see where you put them, and we can see where you put the test pits in, but now we need to see what you actually discovered.
Found.
Test pit.
Yeah, no, I thought they were on the side of the plan, but they were originally on the side.
Yeah, they're in a
plan.
spreadsheet. If you can bring up that spreadsheet, Charlotte. Yeah, so the test pits basically, Alton, I guess you go over these.
Yes.
Yeah, these were submitted separately. And so this is for lot 1. And what we found, test pit 1 was lot 1. And for the first 36 inches, we had mixed fill that had been thrown. John had, I think, placed at an earlier date, or it resulted from some earlier work that was done. And so then we have the mixed fill, and then it is 0 to 36, and then the 10YR 3.2 is the color, which comes from something called the Munsell Color Book. And the color is an important determinant factor in where the seasonal high water level is and the nature of the soil itself. And that was then the texture of that is fine sandy loam, which is pretty common all through Massachusetts. In fact, Paxton fine sandy loam is our state soil, if you will. And then we didn't see any, and it says ROF redoxymorphic features. Those are either high chroma orange models or markings or bands, or low chroma, which means they're very, very pale and grayish generally, which is where the iron in the soil has been reduced rather than oxidized. And those indicate that the water table or the water level is coming up to that depth during the spring, which is the growing season. And so we didn't see any, so we didn't indicate in the BW a seasonal high water level there. And then loam, and then that was 10YR 3.3. No, that was the A. The BW was from 24 to 48 inches. 10YR 66, the color, and then we had silt loam, and then no redoxymorphic features. Same with the sea layer below. It was rockier. No, here we see them, redoxymorphic features at the bottom, mottles. Those are small blobs of color in the soil mottles. And we saw those at 54-inch depth with pale and high chroma models. And so that would be taken as a seasonal high water level. And this is test bit 3.
I just want to point out, as you're going through these, like on the previous one, it said 10 feet of fill going above this. Is that correct?
And, oh, no, 10 feet of additional fill will be placed. Yes, that area is going to be further filled. It's already had some fill, and as you can see, we went through 24 inches of mixed fill. And now there's going to be additional fill to bring it up to grade, as would be shown on the site plan, if you will. You know, even though the stormwater plan would show the grading.
And this, sorry, I'm trying to go back and forth between the plans and what you have up here. This is lot 2 that you're looking at now?
Lot 2,
That's lot
yes,
2.
which would the number would be 28 Lambert's Lane Road. Eventually, when the house is built and they assign a number to it, but it's lot 2. There's 4 lots that are involved here.
As a general rule of thumb, we kept these are all walkout basements, and we kept the detention basins in the front yards where they're all going to be filled. So even without the fill, I think there's still enough space to put 36-inch Cooltex in the existing fill that Alton tested, the test pits. So the fact that there's another 10 feet on top of some of these, or 4 feet, it just adds to the layer of ability to have infiltration for these systems.
Further increase the separation of the seasonal high water level.
Yeah, let's look at this grading plan. It's a lot of fill.
Yeah, that's what I was, it looks like more than 10. I know you guys are estimating, but you're at 50 in the front yard now, and it goes from 33 to 42. So at the lowest, that's 17 feet of fill at the bottom right corner of that house. That's
50
That's
to
more than a
34
lot.
to
Yeah.
32 the bottom. Well, 34 to 50 is 16 foot of fill to
Well,
the front.
it's halfway between the 34 and 32, so presumably it's 33 right now, right? So it's 17.
Yeah. And that's all on the outer right it's outside of the 200-foot line. So, you know, this is kind of areas outside of the buffer zone.
Well, right inside, well, if you want to be specific to the 200-foot, then you're going from 32 to 44 or 46 or 48 within the 200-foot buffer.
Yeah, so we could, I mean, the option is to bury the house in a hole. So when you drive down a hill, or bring the house up and have a walkout basement and fill to the front. But I don't know if that's the purpose of this right here to decide that. I think the purpose of this is to see if we can put systems in that will infiltrate the water. And you know, we can do it either way. You know, if we bury the house in a hole, we can do it, or if we bring it up higher and have a walkout basement and make it more level with the other 2 houses, then you need a little bit of fill to do that.
A little bit. Yeah, you have an estimate?
That's the
of-
most fill I've ever seen on the commission.
You have an estimate of how much fill you're going to bring to this lot?
Well, I mean, the other lots, you're digging holes, right, for the foundations. So there's plenty of fill on the property to fill up over there. So, you know, again, I don't know if this is if this is required here. I mean, you know, we can build it either way, but cosmetically, it's not going to look good to have a house down in a pit,
Okay,
basically.
We're not in the business of telling you how to develop your
Yeah.
lot.
Okay.
We just want to make sure that what you're proposing is consistent with our regulations and bylaws, and state regulations and bylaws.
This is how I would say that it relates to stormwater. Whereas right now, water flows across the ground from 38 elevation down to 34 at the riverfront very slowly. Now you have a giant hill on one side of your property that is going to speed up all that water that's flowing toward the resource.
It's actually the opposite, actually. The hill is steeper now and we've sloped it to be a slower grade.
Show me where.
If you look at 50 to 48 to 46 to 44 to 42 to 40 over here between lot
Yeah, it's
2 and lot 3.
it's good and flat on your property, but at the edge where it goes toward the river, it's very steep.
It's flatter there as well. It kind of like the river is down at 24. If you zoom out totally, you can see that it keeps pitching down and down and down to the river is at 24, which is, it's even lower. Or 26, it's about 26. But
listen,
regardless of that, I mean,
no,
the purpose
no.
of the using
Nope,
the best
nope, I'm not gonna
management
let-
practices to slow that flow down, which we've proven we've done
Sorry,
here.
I will-
John,
I
can
will
you
not-
please, please
I
let
will
Will
not
finish his
let you
comment.
just move on from saying something that is not factual. You cannot fill a site and then make it flatter toward the edges. Just doesn't make sense. That's not factual.
If you have a cliff, which there are cliffs here, and you put fill in a 45-degree angle from where the cliff is down, you can. And I don't know. I think you come out, we could calculate this using geometry to calculate the flatness of that.
I'm
But
looking
regardless,
at
the important
an
thing here is
elevation
that we're
line.
slowing the rate anyway using high technology, right? We're using infiltration systems. Right?
Yeah,
Otherwise,
for the
we would
roof-
need the
for
infiltration
for the
systems.
roof and driveway. For the roof and driveway, but not for all the rest of the ground that's out there.
So I
Part of-
guess, Will, sorry to interrupt you, but I think Alton might be able to help weigh in here on the stormwater portion of why we're asking about the fill. So Alton, would you be able to clarify the existing and proposed grading in terms of how much fill is bringing in, how the terrain is being altered, how that's impacting stormwater runoff and volume? You've done your calculations, but it might be helpful to the commission to clarify why this much amount of fill is necessary in order to construct this project in a way that meets the performance standards and the protected interests in our bylaw. Because we do have several interests in our bylaw about, protection of groundwater and runoff and sedimentation and erosion. And so I think the commission's looking for some justification as to why we're raising the site this high. I mean, you've done your calculations. We can see the 2, 10, and 100-year storm events of runoff and volume, but I think the commission really just needs some clarification here as to why we're bringing in this much fill and changing the topography of the site to this point.
Well, I think in general it was to try and have the houses the ones particularly down lot 4 and in the back there, at more or less the same elevations. So it wasn't, like John had said, a steep drop to one house and back up to the next house. It wasn't a hill and dale topography there, but try and, as much as we can, smooth and level it out between them so that there was room to, shall we say, throw a ball or something, throw a football, father and son or whatever. It just wasn't everything sloping steeply down toward your whole lot, sloping steeply down toward the river with not much land where you could really do very much. Well, now this produced back and front yards to fill and bringing the grading up as such. But the idea is to have it have it pretty much level on the top side. And if you look it would be the west, I think, the 52 and the 54 up there. I'm not going to say that's level at all or not, but that's not a vast slope right there. It's getting toward more a levelish area as compared to the original. And that was the point of that. And then the houses could have the walkout basement doors, which John has mentioned. And part of it that you have to take into account is what it's being planted with. It's not just raw soil here. It's going to be planted, if we look at the landscape plan can be brought up, it's going to be planted with native species, which are good for erosion control and wildlife habitat as well, but a variety of graminoids, shall we say, and forbs we call them, which are grasses and sedges or whatever is on the list where all of our plantings are coming from the Cohasset list, however you phrase that, Charlotte.
I understand all that. Let me be more specific. And I'm going to use, because Chris isn't here, I'm going to use the annotate maybe for the first time. I am specifically referring to, sorry, this is green. This is my first time using it, but this area here you've created a 10-foot cliff that is on the line, which is both the property line and in between the 50-foot buffer and the 50-foot BVW buffer and the 100-foot inner riparian. So I don't think
It's only 6
that-
feet.
I'm not done. I don't think that creating a cliff at the edge of your property is in the best interest of stormwater practices on this site. It goes from 30 to 40.
Where,
So it is,
like, is there a law for that though? I don't know if I've never heard of that law. But where you can't grade your property, and I don't think that has any impact on the laws here for stormwater, the grades. I've never heard that before. Do you have that written somewhere, Charlotte?
I don't
So-
think it's,
And
You need to
regardless, I think we flattened it out
clarify
more. We have flattened it out more,
John,
actually.
let her answer the question. You asked her a question. Let her answer, please.
So in terms of the fill, again, to reiterate, what the commission is asking for is we're looking for more clarity on why the slopes and everything are this way, because a lot of these questions as they relate to the stormwater runoff on the site relate to the stormwater management bylaw and the protected interests of that bylaw. And there are several. I'm happy to go through them. But again, it is related to the grading and the design of the existing versus the proposed conditions in terms of what you're doing to the site, what stormwater management are you doing on the site. And so again, a lot of this relates to the protected interests in our stormwater management bylaw. And it's
Yeah, but
specified.
what's the
rules,
specific end
regulations.
result though?
I would agree, John, we're not here to argue the legality of it. If we need to, Mr. McGregor can do that. The point is, to me, Mr. Ashton has asked a pretty straightforward question that, begs an answer. It's call it a technical question, which has to do with slopes, a steeper slope, accentuating the rate of runoff and how we have controlled that, if you will. And I guess his question is the necessity for the steep slopes and the commissions as well. And straightforward, practical question here, which isn't whether you can do it or not can't do it. The question is, why have we done it, and what is the impact of doing it? And
I guess
he's looking for.
Yeah, and that helps me better define. You've done these curves across the entire site, but there are specific areas of the site where the runoff can be a lot greater, even though it's averaged across the site where it's lower. So your neighbor may be very concerned when rain starts piling over this ledge into their property.
Or mud.
Yeah.
The current topography is really defined by the bedrock outcrop there, which is not eroding. But if you're going to put 14 feet of fill here, we'd be interested to know how stable that's going to be, what materials you're going to use, how you're going to hold it in place. Certainly planting some forbs and grass or whatever, or even trees for that matter, until they've matured, may not be sufficient to stabilize 14 feet of fill on a fairly steep slope here. It's a steep slope now, that's true. I mean, the contour lines are very close together, and the slope is being reduced. You've stepped out a ways, but what are you filling it with? Are you, is it going to be stable? Because if it's not, then we're going to have a siltation problem in the stream itself and on your neighbor's property as well. So you do need to clarify what you're going to do here with this fill. It is related to the runoff here.
Yeah, that's fair enough. So what type of plan would you need, like as far as the type of fill, or just obviously it's going to be mixed with like bedrock and stuff in some areas.
Well, I mean, that's up to you. I mean, we're not the engineers here.
Okay.
Some of the,
We're
some
just,
of the,
and we don't have much to work with here from what you've shown us. This is sort of somehow either we haven't ever talked about this before, or this is kind of new planning here. I was not aware that you were going to add in some places as much as 14 feet of fill. So that-
Charlotte?
So
Excuse
that's,
me, sir.
that's gonna make a substantial difference in how the runoff actually works. Unfortunately, the HydroCAD model is a very generalized model. It doesn't even take topography into account.
If I might
It's a-
comment, sir.
It's a 2D model. Yes,
It takes it into account in the time of concentration. I agree, that's about the only place it shows up directly is in the time of concentration, and that's where that steepness is supposed to, the difference in slopes is supposed to show up in the speed, and let's call it the time, the velocity of the runoff and the time it takes to get to your, what we call a design point.
right.
And that shows up there, but I wouldn't disagree with you that that's,
So Alton, you probably are aware that the engineers who run these HydroCAD models pull this time of concentration number out of thin air. We see a lot of them that are, you know, ridiculously low. We never see ones that are high.
uh,
It's something that generally passes in most cases where we don't, not dealing with steep slopes, we don't pay too much attention to that. But so what did you tell us what time of concentration you've used, first of all, for the existing conditions, and secondly, for the new conditions?
all right, the time of concentration, the whole model and the time of concentration is based on one, what would you call it, in mathematics, one postulate, if you will.
The curve
And
number.
that is, and I don't necessarily agree with it all the time, that the amount of runoff, let's say that the discharge rate of runoff from the property at the discharge point, at the design point, the amount of water being discharged in cubic feet per second is at its maximum when the entire watershed that is flowing to that design point has reached it, if you will. And that is where the time of concentration comes in. That you calculate the time of concentration by saying this is the design point, is at the edge of the wetland, and that's where we want to slow the discharge of the water down. So we work our way back from there to the most distant point from that design point, if you will. We're going uphill, and I think the time of concentration went up to the northwest corner, if you will, because that's about the longest route. The time of concentration lines were included, I think, on the stormwater plan that was submitted, and thus you then calculate, they give you some values that you use. I mean, the slope is included in that, because you start off, first of all, they only give you, I think it's 50 feet you're allowed to do for overland sheet flow.
Right.
You're only allowed to do 50 feet in New England, and they figure at that point, you're now into what's called shallow concentrated flow. It's now gone into some kind of a rill or on its way to a gully or something else. You just don't have just this sheet of easy water gently percolating its way through the grass anymore, or through the underbrush, if you will. It's now joined up and making some kind of a, as I said, a rill or on its way to a gully eventually, perhaps. So the time they give you various velocity characters in the model, which are Manning's numbers for the roughness of the slope. If you're doing the overland flow, the roughness, which gives you from that has a big effect on the velocity of the flow. So if it's dense grass with underbrush, you're going to have a much lower Manning's coefficient, if you will, which helps you calculate the rate of the flow, the speed of the flow, velocity, if you will, and ultimately the amount it's discharging in cubic feet per second. Now, those numbers come from whoever did the model. I mean, you can go around and find endless books on Manning's numbers. That's generally for open channel flow. They're used in general, but here they use them for overland flow. And where those come from, I don't actually know in this model. I mean, someone came up somewhere. Well, this model comes from NRCS, who did testing on this in places. They would take various agricultural fields and other fields and actually calculate the amount of runoff. It was there's a big one up in, this doesn't apply right to here, but one up in New Hampshire. There's a very famous testing area there. We're in the woods, For years,
Okay,
they.
let's not get, let's not. get-
All right, I'm just giving you an example, that this was all done by the NRCS.
yeah, yeah.
who
Let's
put all
talk,
these numbers
let's
together.
talk about the site, Alton.
Okay,
So your curve numbers here are the same pre and post development. Your average curve number, right?
uh. mm,
That's what we're looking at.
Well, yeah, right here, okay, post-development, pre-development.
Yeah.
Yes, if the vegetation was replaced pretty much by, if we had, I think, woods and grass grass lawn with trees in it, and then we replace it with the same, the curve number should stay the same.
Yeah.
If the vegetation and the cover is the same,
Okay, so,
that's what the curve number comes from.
so I guess my question to you is then, if the pre-development curve number is 64 and the post-development curve number is 64, you can see the time of concentrations are substantially different between the two. So how did you arrive at either one of those?
How did I arrive at those numbers?
Yeah,
It derived from the
5.6
model.
and 2.1. There is no place to put topography into a HydroCAD model.
No,
That's
there
not
isn't.
the inputs for
It
the model.
only comes in the time of concentration.
Right.
The estimate,
And that's something that you can enter. And it looks like you entered 5.6.
5.6 pre-development.
2.1 in post-development. So how did you
Well,
arrive at those two numbers?
You arrive at it by first, you lay out your course from the furthest point, most distant point in the watershed to your design point.
Right.
Then you take the first 50 feet of that and you calculate the slope by the length, 50 feet, whatever the difference in the two elevations is, divided by 50 gives you your slope. And then you look at what the cover value is, and they have an automatic, you punch in, okay, it's woods or it's brush or
Right.
whatever, and they come up with a Manning's number, which tells you how fast, which is kind of the roughness coefficient, if you will. It's how easily the water is going to flow along the surface. Obviously, the Manning's number for a paved driveway is very, very much higher than it is going to be for a dense grass lawn or something, or woods, or any of those other types of covers. And if the stretch of the time of concentration route goes down over a pavement or another impervious surface, it greatly obviously speeds the velocity of the flow and and reduces the time of concentration. It's going down a paved surface. If it's all through the woods and relatively low slope, then it's going to slow it down considerably.
Well,
So that's the one.
well, to go from 5.6 to 2.1, it's speeding up. So you have 5.6 minutes for your time of concentration pre-development, and then 2.1 minutes for your post-development. So your velocity's got to go up.
Well, that's what the model generated, right, Alton? Those
Yes.
numbers are pulled out of the HydroCAD model.
They are pulled
Yeah.
out of the HydroCAD model. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I realize that.
But the peak rate, the 100-year and everything is lower. So your actual runoff is lower, right? And that's the goal, is to show that less water is leaving the property than before. That's why the slopes are really irrelevant, right? As long as
The amount of water that leaves the site is related to how much you can infiltrate.
Or
well,
if you
you have a
can't
higher time
infiltrate
of
any water,
concentration.
The amount of water leaving the site is the same.
Well, technically, yeah. I mean, it all is going to flow into the river before it even hits the neighbor's house, because the river is before the neighbor's house, right? So
Well,
it all really doesn't matter.
This whole part of it, this whole conversation, this part of the conversation really was about whether or not you're going to have erosion in your 14 feet of fill here. That's what we're getting at.
But since we're here and we're on this talking about pre and post development, another contributing factor to the numbers that come out of this HydroCAD are the curve numbers that you input for the various surfaces, which I think you have a pre and post plan on that I also have questions on whenever you get to it.
I'd like to see a better representation of like how much fill's coming in here and what the, like, what it's gonna look like, in terms of just, you know, how much fill are they bringing in? What's the, what,
Usually,
and how are they
usually
gonna
we don't,
retain?
usually we don't pay very much attention to the cut and fill, but this is so extreme here. And it has it's going to have a bearing on how well this site drains, how well it infiltrates. I mean, you're really substantially changing the character of the surface here.
And they're putting it on, and you're putting it on ledge. I mean, from every time I've been up there, you're just putting it on a rock slope. I can't imagine how it's not just gonna run down into the resource. I just can't picture it in my mind. It's all I see. It's just mud and everything
I
running.
mean,
Yeah,
we sort of expect to see a retaining wall or something to keep all this in place.
Something, yeah. I don't know.
well, a 45-degree angle. I think the engineers can answer this. Alton, I will write something up for you to show you how fill can stay in place if it's at a 45-degree angle.
Yeah, I'd love to see that.
Yeah,
And it's-
well, I think
and
it's, pretty straightforward engineering. That's why normally stormwater is done by an engineering department in a lot of other towns. And, the engineers already kind of understand all this
We have
information.
engineers here. Don't worry about it.
I'm not,
I think we have a pretty good understanding of this. It was interesting to hear Alton explain it all to us. Didn't hear anything particularly new there, but thank you, Alton.
well, I don't know
You
if
did
I
it- no,
can say
you did a
anything
very
new
good
if you're
job of
familiar with this.
You've done
You
a
know, if
really
you're-
good job of explaining how all of this works. We all appreciate that.
If we could for a moment, which would help, if Charlotte, you can kind of scan down to lot 3. Can we do that in there? And there you can see a bit of this, the topography. There is, you've seen it. If you go up the driveway, those of you who have been to the site, you see
Yeah.
as you go up to the driveway, you don't have to go very far. You see to the right, it's all kind of rocky knob there, smoothed off rock knobs with some vegetation in and about it. And that's the top of what I call the kind of the ridge or the backbone of this piece of property. Then if you go to the east, it would be toward the river. It drops off rather precipitously there. And it shows up in the topography there. There's a pretty quick drop rate in there of, you'd have to kind of zoom in a little more. I can't see it right now.
So
Yeah.
I guess, and I think it sounds like at least a couple of the commissioners are concerned about the slope stability here of your fill.
Yes.
And that is sort of on the edge of our jurisdiction. I'll concede that, but
I would actually say it is in our jurisdiction under the stormwater bylaw. We protect and prevent and try to mitigate erosion, sedimentation, and everything else. So it is definitely protected interest in our bylaw, or
thank you.
stormwater specifically.
Thank you.
Well,
Yep.
it's
Yeah, but
slopes are typically.
So that gives me even more confidence that we're on firm ground here, and maybe you aren't with this fill.
If I can mention something on slopes a little bit, we
Sure.
generally work with three slopes commonly. 1 to 1, 2 to 1, or 3 to 1. 3 to 1 is the least steep, and it's the preferred one in many instances where you want to really reduce erosion and you have sufficient room to do it. Takes a lot of room when you're 3 to 1. Every foot you go up, you got to go 3 horizontal. But that is the most stable slope, if you will. Then 2 to 1 is the next slope up, and that is steeper. But if it's properly vegetated with a good lawn and stuff, it holds itself in place, and you can actually mow it with a lawnmower. If you go to 1 to 1, you have to rip-wrap the slope, or it's not going to stay in place. You have to put an armor covering on it of stone, or else it's just going to disappear, if you will. And that's what I'm sure you're concerned with now. Mr. Ashton was probably, and others here, Mr. McIntyre, that fill going to just disappear down into the wetland and into the river eventually because of the steepness and the slope. And the other characteristic that is obviously is very important, is the nature of the fill material. The rockier it is, the more stable it's gonna be. The more fine material you have in it, the more it's gonna wash away. So that's all part of it. And I think if I'm not mistaken, a fair amount of this fill is gonna be pretty much rock because it's being generated on the property. If you're at lot 4 there, or some of these others, or lot 3, and you're leveling it off, that's all rock up at lot 3. You will, as you go in the driveway, you can see it. If that's being leveled off or excavating for a basement in there, you're gonna end up with a lot of rock that can be used as a fill and very sturdy stuff, or as riprap at the bottom. You know, a lot of I don't know if it shows here, but what I'd intended to do, if I didn't have a retaining wall, but is to have like a fairly sturdy and high and reasonably wide riprap band at the bottom of those slopes that you would then put smaller stone behind. So the riprap would hold everything together from sliding down the hill, and then the smaller stone behind it, and then eventually good earth. Smaller stone behind it would help prevent water from, you know, flowing through, hold back water, kind of dam it better, all the holes, and then this whole.
That's great, Mr. Stone, but you're talking about something that you intend to design rather than something that you have designed. It's not on
Yeah.
your, not on your
Yeah,
It's
plan.
not on the plan.
I think we can take,
This is all supposition. So if that's where you want to go with this, okay, then show us a plan.
we could take the average slope of the whole property. We can
Do-
calculate that,
do-
I think.
Do a cut and fill plan for your property here. And show us some real plans and cross sections and calculations that assure us that slope stability has been considered and it's going to be fine. But just asserting it here during the meeting is not going to cut it.
Fair enough.
Can I go to one other area on the north property line? Is that you're the sharing, Charlotte? I think we all,
On lot 2, sorry, Will.
yeah, all the way to the north, the northern, yeah, right up here where all these.
Okay.
Let me use my pen again. Maybe I'll use red this time.
Yeah.
So in this area, it looks like your elevation lines, your new elevations cross over the property line. So I don't think we would be able to approve a stormwater permit that shows you altering another property's elevations. So I think you need to do some work on in this area to ensure you're not grading your neighbor's property.
Well, that is the existing grade actually over there. We just tied into it.
Well,
Looks
Then
like
you need
40
to
feet
correct-
ties into 36, doesn't it?
yeah, you need to
Yeah.
correct the plan because those lines
this-
don't further on your property.
Yeah, we'll clean that up. We'll correct that. We won't change any neighbor's grades. We're just trying to tie into his grades.
Well, I'll just say that the amount of fill has really, I haven't been aware that there was going to be this much cut and fill here.
It's really just one front yard and then the 45-degree angle down off that cliff. That's really it. I mean, and when you're on site, we can go over it. I mean, if you want to come and see it.
No, we want to see a plan.
I mean, I'd
Yeah.
like to see a section through that steep part because it doesn't look 45 to me based on the scale of this map. If you're going down 10 feet.
It is, yeah, we validated that. So I think there's a way we can calculate the average steepness of the entire property before and then after, and I think that we can prove that the after will be flatter, and that's what your goal is, right?
No, it's
No,
not.
the average is not our goal because
What
if you have some parts of the property that are
any part,
exceptionally-
okay, so any part, we can't make it any steeper. If it was flat before, we can't make it steeper. So
No,
we
I'm
can
not-
change that.
I'm not saying that.
Okay,
I'm not telling you how to develop your property here.
okay,
I think if I can just jump in quickly here, because we're coming up on an hour and it sounds like we're going to need more information. So I'd like to quickly recap here, and please feel free to jump in, commissioners, if I miss anything. So it sounds like the commission is looking for more information on you know, justification again on the amount of fill. So normally what type of plan we typically request, I'm sure Alton has some, you know, familiarity with this, but it's called a cut and fill plan. And I can send
Yep.
examples if needed, but basically you show the amount of fill being brought in certain areas, to what degree, you show the slopes, you show the slope cross sections so we can see, you know, everything, and then provide those calculations in terms of the number of fill, the total amount of fill that's being brought in the respective lots and on the site in total. You know, maybe clarifying the slope a little bit more. Alton mentioned a 3-to-1 or less. Whether or not you need to add riprap, you know, he was talking about it hypothetically, but that might be something to consider if you need to add to the plans. Cleaning up and clarifying on the plans that there will not be any, you know, grading onto 129 Hall Street. So just making those colors and lines on the plan a little bit clearer. And then, of course, seeing the cross sections through the portions on the slopes on lots 3 and 4, not 3, sorry, 4 and 2. You know, so these areas here, just kind of getting an idea. So Alton, I think the main thing we need here is a cut and fill plan with those cross sections, total amount of fill calculations, and slopes to really kind of get the commission to give them more information on whether or not these slopes are going to be stable. If you haven't already, you might need some additional information on temporary measures. You know, when you bring in the fill, you may have to put down certain types of erosion controls. So that may be something you have to consider. That's not something the commission mentioned, but that's something that I'm mentioning now. So does that kind of fill everything in for commissioners here? Am I missing anything in terms of the stormwater management design? Is there any other information that commissioners want to see on the plans or have Alton provide?
I only had one other thing, and it was on the last plan in the set, the curve numbers, the pre and post.
Okay, so the
Well,
stormwater summary?
I think, hang on, it's called.
Yeah, this actually gets back quite a ways back for us. We had a conversation a long time ago about this property, about the curve numbers that would have to be used in the pre-development situation, and that means pre-clear cutting. So
Alton went back and he recalculated the pre and post, and he used type B soils. And he basically used type. So there's a lot of work there to redo everything from scratch, the way that Will wanted it before. And Tom, I think you mentioned as well, to kind of basically, you know, use woods brush and use woods grass more in SC1 and SC2. And Alton did that. And there is a plan. If you go to the next page, Charlotte, it kind of details that 2 pages down from this plan. And I think that'll answer all of Will's questions.
No, my
That's why we had
questions
to
are on
add
that
in more
plan.
infiltration systems here, and not
It's
this
the one
one.
with all the, it's the one with all the colors on it that looks like round, the green, the brown, and the gray.
Yeah.
It's the landscape plan. And then we.
Yeah, you skipped. I think you skipped one. Yeah, that one. Yep.
This one, yeah.
Yeah. So that's
So,
kind of those line up with
my-
the satellite pictures.
Well, my
of-
specific questions were in the precondition, you have a significant amount of ledge here.
Mhm.
And or existing foundation or whatever you want to call something that's a 98 curve number.
Mhm.
And if you scroll down to the post, it's a little lower, Charlotte.
Mhm.
None of that ledge is there. Maybe it's because you filled it with 15 feet of fill. So that might be
No,
why.
no,
but
that was an old foundation. We basically, the previous stormwater report we had for this, we had permission to knock that foundation down and then fill it over. And that's what we were doing. We were about to plant grass on it, but then we were stopped, and then we decided to just go ahead with this plan and use the stormwater report to finish it. But that is a cliff over there, and we're grading it. I mean, the general thing here, we're not trying to trick anybody with grading here. If people move into these properties, we don't want any steep cliffs, and we try to grade it so kids wouldn't fall off a cliff. So we try to take the steep cliffs, and we're being conscious from another standpoint, not looking at rainwater running into a river that's going to run into the ocean anyway, but look at, like, if there's a bunch of small children on this property, is there a cliff? And if there is, can we grade it a little bit? And that's
But
all we
you've-
really did. But I think we'll go back and
you
we'll prove
can't
out.
say that. You can't
Yeah.
say that when you've created a cliff at your property line.
No,
There's-
well, we didn't really. I mean, it's a 45-degree angle, and it's kind
It's
of like
not,
a-
I did it,
yeah.
I did a takeoff on your drawing and it drops
Yeah,
10 feet
well,
and 4 feet.
the reason we did that, the reason we did the fill there is to, I mean, there's a reason for everything. The reason we did a little fill there is because we wanted to plant more trees there as part of restoration
You
and
know,
grade it down
we're
slightly.
getting into something that's really
Yeah, exactly,
relevant here.
So,
we're not in-
sorry,
we're really not
I-
interested in motives. Why you did.
I had a point on that drawing that we were on that we got distracted from. My
Mhm.
only point in bringing that up was that you can skew the pre and post numbers by putting more ledge on your initial plan because it's so high, it's 98, right? So it says that the runoff's a lot higher than it is if it's a 61, if it's grass. So like you said, we aren't engineers, so I think perhaps we should get a what's it called, third-party independent review of all this runoff.
Yeah, we kind of thought that there would be, it would come down to measuring every inch of before and after, and I've never seen this before, but we'll do it. And I think, you know, on the previous stormwater report, people came out and they saw the ledge there. And, you know, so I mean, if that's what's needed, we can do that. I mean, we can, I don't know how you're gonna go back to that old foundation. It's only 2,000 square feet. It's buried already.
It's
So
not just the foundation, it's also the bedrock outcrop.
the bedrock outcrop is kind of half buried already too. It's already kind of out of the way. It's a small area. It's 2,000 square feet.
If it's buried, then why is it marked as a surface feature and
That
calculated?
was the
98?
precondition, and the post condition doesn't have it because it's just
Well,
basically grass in a backyard.
If
But
that was the
regardless,
pre-
if
that
we
was
put
the
it back in, the
precondition,
reality
it's all
is,
that trash.
if you want us to put in 5,000 square feet of ledge currently, we can just add more Cooltech systems. We can just keep adding Cooltech systems here because we have plenty of areas to do it.
All right, I think we're getting off track here. So I think
Okay, all
some
right.
commissioners have mentioned potentially a peer review. Is that a request or is that just a suggestion? Does anyone have thoughts on that? Because like, again, I think we reiterated a lot of what we're looking for with the stormwater that Alton can provide, but is there anything else or does,
Yeah,
you
this is
Well,
a pretty
can't you just use-
this is a pretty
just-
complex site. Particularly with the addition of so much cut and fill. And I think it would be worthwhile to have
Yeah,
somebody
that's what I mean.
have a look at it.
Yeah, I
I
agree.
think-
I'd love to
How
have
about
a
the
peer review.
satellite pictures though? I mean, who's gonna pay for somebody to come and do another inspection?
That'd be it.
Pardon?
You,
You are.
Yeah, so I mean, what are they gonna do? I mean, it's 2,000 square feet. Like, do you want us to just take the 2,000 square feet of ledge and put it back in as post? And then we'll just put more
No,
Cooltech systems in. Will that satisfy you?
We would like independent engineer to do a peer review of the entire package is what we're saying.
Okay. Has anybody ever done this before in Cohasset or?
yeah,
Okay,
we run peer reviews from time to time, particularly in when we're talking about complex topographic alteration.
so with a peer review, it's an engineer that is brought on by the town, but John, you are responsible for the cost, where the peer reviewer would look at all of the submission documents as it pertains to stormwater management, and they will review it in compliance with our bylaw and with the stormwater standards. So that, I don't know if that would involve a site visit. It would depend on what the peer reviewer's scope is. So if the commission wants a peer review and if you agree to it, we can vote on that tonight. But I think the commission needs to set the parameters of what the peer reviewer should be looking at. And then whether or not the peer reviewer should be looking at the documents that it seems like we have just requested. So I don't know if we want to wait for that information and then get the peer review or get the peer review now with any information.
I'd be inclined to let the applicant, he's heard a lot, and our concerns really do come down to the potential for slope stability here. And I think it's, to be fair to the applicant, they should have a chance to put some of what they said they would do or might do on paper and come back with that. I think maybe it's premature to do a peer review. Yes, Mr. McGregor.
Thank you. Good evening. I agree. We're reaching the point of diminishing returns. I compliment Ms. Pechtel on her excellent summary of what it is you all asked for and why and how it fit. And the applicant agrees to write an email tomorrow to confirm. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or whatever it comes to. And of course, I'll advise them to do their best to address your concerns, stated and unstated, whether they seem to be individuals on the commission or the commission as a whole. And you can pick a date where Alton thinks he'll be able confidently to provide that documentation. Like you said, in plans, cross sections, and calculations. That's what I see as coming. So the question is, how much time does Alton need to do a bang-up job on that to do his best to satisfy your concerns on plans, cross sections, and calculations, and explanations, of course.
Yeah, thank you.
If I might make one comment, a lot of this is drifted over into the notice of intent, but I understand it's key in getting to a stormwater answer, if you will. If amounts of fill, the slopes, all of that plays directly in. It's something you can't really separate out at this moment. It's, you know, they're too highly integrated, as Mr. Ashton has pointed out. The slopes have a great slopes and materials above and beyond their stability do certainly play into the stormwater runoff rates and volumes that are going to be produced by the property. So I think it's very reasonable to get that ahead of time here, get it in.
Thank
and
you,
it will also
Alton.
be-
Yeah, I was just about to suggest that. So I guess it sounds like we're going to need a continuance to provide this information. Currently, the NOI and the show cause have been continued to April 4th, but as you know, you would have to provide documents a week in advance per our regulations. So if you think that's enough time to provide any and all of the updated notice of intent documents and the additional stormwater documents, you can, maybe confirm a continuance to April 4th. But if you think that you need more time, I think it would be best to pick a date so that both the stormwater and the notice of intent can come back on the same day, and we can address all these issues as part of both permits at the same time.
I think that's going to have to be put further into the future from my standpoint. If I might say it, there's a lot of material to pull together there.
Mhm.
Okay.
Okay. So our, so our next 3 meetings are April 4th, April 18th, May 2nd, and I believe May 16th. So those are actually the next 4. And just keep in mind, you'd have to submit things a week before. Do you feel more comfortable with April 18th or May 2nd for both the stormwater and the notice of intent?
I think the 18th is fine.
Alton,
Thank you, John.
Alton, does that sound comfortable to you? You would have to get documents a week in advance. That would be by April 11th.
It's a cut and fill plan, correct? And more detail.
Yes, but
a
keep
lot
in mind,
that
he's also
goes in
still
there.
working on the other documents we requested for the other permit.
Yeah. So that gives them another 2 weeks, right? So. Yeah,
And
yeah,
all the stormwater has to be redone, basically, because we're having really altering the property here with our new sloping and such.
I can't hear you, Alton. Can you talk up?
Well, I'm just saying, there's a lot to be done. The stormwater has to be redone as well, because it's changes here that the commission has brought up. They have questions on the original existing conditions, and then they have questions, and then all this new cut and fill business and slopes all has a bearing into the stormwater.
So I guess, Alton, it sounds like, are you okay with, I want to get your answer. Are you okay with April 18th as well? John has requested April 18th. Does that work for you to provide documents by April 11th?
No,
No? Okay. How about? does
Wait,
May-
Alton, I'll have to hire another engineer then, because I can't wait until May. It's just
You
too
can-
long.
You
Just
guys need
they're
to
gonna
work this out. You
Okay,
guys
well,
need to
why
work
don't we,
this
you
out,
guys will have to do that
between you,
offline, but why
not in
don't,
front of us.
yeah,
Yeah.
so, how
Keep it for
about,
April 18th, Charlotte.
okay. So John, if you can send me an email about the confirmation about the continuing the stormwater hearing to April 18th, and I would also recommend bringing back the notice of intent on April 18th. If you can send me an email in writing to confirm that, we'll.
Yeah, also, if you could summarize the notes for what's requested
I will
here,
do that.
because it just sounds like it might be something else on the 18th again, like, hey, there was another rock over here we didn't account for. Can we go look at that again?
Yep,
So,
I will ask the commissioners to privately email me any remaining comments that I did not mention
Okay.
tonight. And I will give you a list in writing of what I
Yeah, 'cause-
summarized and if there's any other comments.
I mean, we accommodated last time. We made everything.
I
wood
understood, but
brush.
I will get you that in writing so that you can
Okay.
have that and Alton can take that.
Okay, thank you.
But let's continue to, okay, so we'll continue the stormwater and then if you can send me an email as well for the notice of intent to continue to April 18th, we will go from there. And then obviously, just, confirm those dates with your engineer.
All right, thank you.
Okay. All
Okay,
right.
thanks for all your time and attention.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Okay, so next we're going to consider an enforcement order for 143 Beechwood Street. Unpermitted tree removal.
Since it's a little late, I do have the contractor on the call for 34 Flintlock Ridge Road. Do you think we could go through that one first?
Yeah, sure, we can.
Yeah,
That's
just
no
take care of
problem.
him.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi, Thomas, can you hear us? You're muted. Hi,
Mhm.
yes, hi.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, we can hear you.
good.
Okay, so I'll start off. So Thomas came to me earlier this week. He had some questions about bringing in some dirt in the 50-foot buffer. Depending on, again, how much we're doing and where we're putting it, I said, it might be best to take a look at it. And I can recommend either an RDA or an NOI. We looked at it on the site. Some of the dirt was already spread out. We didn't get he didn't have an updated or a current delineation of the wetlands. He was using some older maps. And Thomas, please correct me if I'm wrong, you thought you were following the wetland line, but then we pulled the Board of Health records with the septic plan from Title V, and we saw the delineation from 2015. And looking at that rough delineation, even though it's expired, just using it as a reference point, it looks like some of the dirt and the fill was brought into the wetland. So I recommended, again, if any fill's in the wetland, it has to be immediately removed. So we brought on, Thomas and I talked about consulting a wetland scientist. So we brought Brad Holmes to the site on Wednesday. And Brad said it's obviously difficult for him to delineate the wetland right now, but he did provide a reference document using the 2015 site plan of some rough measurements of where, based on the 2015 flags are, where the wetland may be based on an existing structure. Sorry, can you guys see this? So Thomas said he would look and measure from these points of an existing structure to kind of determine where the rough line for the wetland is. And so I issued an enforcement order, and I'll pull that up. But just to let you guys know, the enforcement order is only to remove the fill and any materials and debris that's in the wetland areas immediately, and to either remove it off-site or to keep it in an upland area. There's some other landscaping activity that was going on at the site as well in the buffer zones, but at least for the purposes of this enforcement order, which you can either ratify or modify tonight, it was to just immediately remove the fill, get in some erosion controls, stabilize the area for now. And then at the moment, I have not required a mitigation plan, but did note in the enforcement order that a mitigation plan will most likely be needed. I just didn't put in a date of when we want that. So that might be a possible amendment to the enforcement order you could consider. But as it stands right now, Thomas, can you give us an update on whether or not you have started removing the material from the anticipated areas of where this wetland is?
Yeah, so today's equipment showed up around 10 to noon, and we
Okay.
started on getting that. We have wattles, we have a silt fence on property.
Okay.
As soon as we've removed, I would say about half of the fill dirt
Okay.
already. to the point where I need to have it trucked out. So by the end of tomorrow, I'm gonna have it taken care of. We should have the silt fence put in place, the wattle, and then from there we pretty much just have to wait and wait for growth and whatnot.
Okay, so you've removed a good portion of the dirt. Did you start taking out any of like the yard clippings and other stuff that was kind of pushed in there as well?
Yeah, it's all
Okay.
going into the same pile to be
Okay.
removed.
Okay, and you're just scraping down to these are all the conditions, just for reference that I'm showing that were in the enforcement order. So removing all the stuff that's in the wetland, that's not, naturally there. We wanted it, again, he does need an excavator but again, we were just gonna scrape the surface to the point where you get down to the naturally occurring material, so not removing any of the natural material. So getting down to that mucky level or that vegetation level. Just putting down erosion controls once that's all done. So I will be going out there, and as part of this current enforcement order, I'll go out there and we'll look at when all the dirt's removed. I'll make sure everything looks good, and then we can drop a barrier down, and then the commission, we'll hear your next steps of what what else needs to be done. But this is the point of the enforcement order, to immediately take care of that situation. So it is not currently for any, buffer zone stuff. There's no restoration plan right now, although I did note it here that obviously we may obviously want one, but I didn't put in a date yet. And with that, I can turn it over. We did want to flag the wetland, but again, it can't be flagged on site until we can remove that material and understand where the true wetland line is, since the delineation reference we have is expired. So that would be another thing that, upon removal, to work with a wetland scientist to just get that wetland flag so we can establish a new line and figure out maybe what to do from there with a restoration plan. And I can pull up pictures too.
So yeah, it sounds like, in a nutshell here, once the site is ready to be restored, the applicant's going to return to us. We're going to, with a remediation plan, remediation planting. So let's schedule that for a time if we can.
Okay.
I guess my question to Thomas is, how soon do you think you will be ready to, well, how soon will all of this material be moved, and when can Charlotte come out and take a look at it and confirm that? And when can you guys be back with, are we going to have a delineation done here, Charlotte, or not?
That's what I put in the enforcement order, unless you want to ratify and modify it.
Yeah, I think we probably better know the limits here.
Yeah, we don't have, I mean, technically the delineation we used is just a rough estimation right now because it's expired, so it's no longer an active official
Okay.
delineation.
Okay, so the applicant needs to engage a wetland scientist to do a wetlands delineation, and I guess once that's done and the site has been cleared of any debris, then we can look at it and see what sort of remediation is appropriate.
Okay. So do you guys want to maybe just keep the enforcement order as is for now and vote to ratify it? And then once he's done all that, I can kind of put it on whatever the next hearing is. Hopefully it can be on April 4th, so we can kind of just move this along quickly.
Yeah.
Okay. I think I can just keep it as is.
So right now, it looks like tomorrow, just looking at the weather, you know, you were on site, it kind of turns to muck back there because of all the
Yeah.
dead, it's just dead leaves and whatnot. So it kind of turns to muck really fast. So I'm thinking obviously by Monday,
Mhm.
no, it's gonna rain this weekend. So I pretty much have tomorrow open to get the other half of that dirt out of there. I'm just worried. I don't want to put a piece of equipment back there and then
Yeah.
Yeah,
get
right.
that
We don't want to do
truck
any,
and then make it a
want to
bigger
do any
mess.
further damage. So
Yeah.
time is
Yeah,
not
I-
necessarily the essence here. And so if things dry out a little bit better, that would probably be better. We're coming up on an optimal time, I presume, to do some planting. So we don't want to delay too long, but let's not do any further damage with equipment and the like.
Yeah, if I go get, I don't want to go getting stuck and then have a wrecker or something out there and then
Right.
have them tear up more.
Right.
God forbid.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So I just slow and steady wins the race. I
Yep.
don't, like I said, I just want to undo what I did. And, you know, it's sad that we can't have the nature preserve that she wanted, but I mean, we'll return it back to, swamp.
Okay,
Okay,
so,
Jonathan, you said you can take it out by tomorrow, and you said you have some barriers on site?
Yeah, it's on site. They're not installed yet because
But they're,
obviously,
you have them though?
but they're there as soon as we can cross that line and we can put it up. We will.
Okay, okay, great. Yeah, so, I don't know if you guys want to amend it at all. I just said remove immediately, so I didn't technically give a date. I just said immediately, which he's already doing, so he is
Yeah.
compliant.
I don't think we need to do anything more than
Okay, yeah, so stabilize the site, remove the dirt, put in the barriers, delineate the wetlands, and come back, and then we can figure out moving forward what type of restoration plan we need.
right. So
Okay.
so I'll make a motion to ratify the enforcement order.
Second.
We'll have a roll call vote. Will Ashton,
Will Ashton, aye.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, I.
Chris McIntyre,
McIntyre, aye.
Valeria Romano. Valeria Romano,
Oh, Valeria, you're muted.
you're muted.
Snack.
Well,
I was
visually, we
muted in
can.
two places. Excuse me. Valerio Romano, aye.
Thank you. Tom Bell, aye. So that passes 5-0-0. Okay, we're going to take a 5-minute break.
Okay, and Thomas, you have my number, so we'll touch base tomorrow, and we'll just go from there. How's that?
Sounds great. Thank you.
Okay,
Okay, let's
all right, thank
reconvene.
you.
We're going to
Bye-bye.
reconvene at 9:55.
Oh.
So done with the heavy lifting, guys. The rest of the items are pretty easy.
Good.
Yep. Try to keep it under a minute or less.
Right. So that was Flintlock, right, Charlotte?
Yes.
All right.
All right. Oh, give him another minute.
Will, I thought you were an engineer.
I like that line. We have our engineers. Don't you worry about it.
Yeah, they're called the ones you pay for.
That's great. That was good. All right. Tom, can I start?
Yes, let's get back to work here.
Okay, so the other two enforcement orders on the list, you just have to ratify them or amend them. So 143 Beechwood and 97 Border. Both of these are, you will see, nod in your head, they are previous RDAs that were submitted. We issued determinations telling them they needed a notice of intent to remove trees. For 97 Border, it was one tree in the coastal bank and riverfront area that we told them it needed a notice of intent because it was a live, healthy tree. It was cut down. I don't see it. I've driven by Border Street. And I think I was at a final inspection for 99 Border. Didn't see it there. So it looks like it was taken down. 143 Beechwood, we gave them permission to cut down only one tree that was leaning over the driveway, but there were a bunch of other trees they had marked in the 50 and 100 foot buffer. We told them a notice of intent was needed. It looks like most, if not a lot of those trees have already been removed from the site. I don't know the exact dates. I've been a little slow to issue these, but I'm still obviously within my 2 years, so we're good. So you guys just have to ratify them. The only thing I'll note for 97 Border is, Tom, like we discussed, I'm requiring a mitigation plan and the wetlands to be flagged for 143 Beechwood Street, so I'll pull that one up. 97 Border, there were previous discussions about the difficulty of finding a place to plant the tree on the site. So for the moment, I just said you are required for both of these enforcement hearings to attend a May 5th hearing. For this is 143 Beechwood. This was our request with the RDA that when they submitted a notice of intent, we wanted a brand new wetland delineation. So I put that in the order that they have to submit that, and that they have to submit a restoration plan, kind of mirroring what we've done for others with the location of the trees that were removed in buffer zones and wetland, the specifying the tree, caliper size, health status, 1-to-1 replacement or greater of all trees removed, the trees to be planted somewhere in their respective zones, 2-to-1 or greater in the 50-foot buffer, 1-to-1 or greater in 100-foot buffer. And then just to clarify, National Grid was doing some work over there back in the late summer, early fall. So I did want them to specify that just to make it clear, because National Grid has different exemption levels than private citizens. And then I wanted them to submit a restoration plan by May 2nd for the May 2nd hearing. So that's this one. Do you guys want to vote on this one first?
Yeah. And this is 143 Beechwood, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I move that we ratify the enforcement order for 143 Beechwood Street.
Second.
Roll call vote. Will Ashton,
Will Ashton, aye.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Chris McIntyre,
This McIntyre, aye.
Valeria Romano,
Valerio Romano, aye.
Tom Bell, aye. That motion passes 5-0-0.
And then Border Street, I'll leave this up to you guys if you want me to amend it or not. I just said this, that again, they have to attend an enforcement order hearing on May 2nd. And I said replacement is not yet required, however, it's recommended. So I know we talked about with this project during the RDA, there were difficulties about where to plant a tree on the site because it's all ledge. Although I will note that Easton red cedars don't mind ledge. So I don't know if that was just an owner's willingness to, they didn't want to plant a tree, or there really is no space. So I don't know if you guys want a plan or not. It's one tree, so I don't know if we want to just tell them plant a tree by a certain date, or if we want a full-blown restoration plan. But if they don't attend the hearing, if neither of them attend the hearing on May 2nd, I think, again, in violation of the enforcement order, you can start issuing fines for every day that you're not compliant. So I don't know. What do you guys think about this one? I'm sure you guys remember, because I think some of you guys nodding your heads. So I
Yeah.
don't know if you guys want to plan or if you just want them to replace a tree by a certain date.
Well, if they're being difficult about where to plant it, telling us that there's no place to plant it, then I think we do need a plan, and if required, you should go out there yourself, Charlotte,
Okay.
and I agree that an eastern red cedar, all they need is a wide crack in that bedrock, and it'll do probably just fine.
Okay. So we want 1-to-1 replacement, or do we want more?
Is it in the buffer, 50-foot buffer?
Oh, it was in the resource area.
Oh,
It's in the
resource
riverfront,
area. Oh,
Yep.
how about,
and it's on the edge of the coastal bank,
yeah,
or
how
just within the coastal bank.
about 3-to-1?
Yeah.
I mean, the resource area. I mean, if it's 1-to-1 in 100, 2-to-1 in the 50.
That's like our general thing, but yeah, I mean, with enforcement, you have the general, the ball's in your court. So this is a violation of a previously issued permit in a resource area.
Yeah, which is really annoying that they
Yeah.
just, they knew what they were supposed to do and they went ahead and did what they wanted
They
to
did
do
it.
anyway.
When they told me they weren't going to do it too.
Yeah,
That definitely calls for 3-to-1 then.
Yeah.
yeah.
Have we verified that the tree was cut and didn't just fall over?
I do not know that. They have not provided that information to me, but I can, when you drive over the bridge on Border Street, it was a beautiful cedar that you could see as you were rounding the corner, and I don't see it
Yeah,
Uh,
I remember them coming in for the RDA and
anymore.
pictures of it and everything. I just
Yeah,
So-
that I don't know. I think if they provide that clarification, that would have been helpful, but they removed a tree outside, you know what I mean? Like, but yeah, I mean, I think that'd be helpful to know if it actually fell down, but there'd be no
Yeah.
way for them to prove that.
Go out and have a look at the site, Charlotte. You can see if there's a stump there and any evidence that, it might have fallen. Don't
Okay.
ask them whether it's fallen, just ask them when they cut it maybe and see what they say. And
Mhm.
see if you can find a spot where they might do a 3-to-1 mitigation. And we're not talking about blueberries here. We're talking about something like a red cedar
Mm-hmm.
or 3 red cedars. So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, but I think it's probably a good idea if you just have a look at it before you move forward.
So do you
Other
think
than
maybe I
ratify
can,
it. I mean,
poison
most-
Do you wanna-
ivy would do
do you want to ratify it now? You don't want to modify it? You just want me to go out to the site and see
Yeah.
where we can put one?
yeah, let's ratify it now and then
Okay.
get some eyes on the ground to see what's feasible.
Okay, so you don't want to amend this at all right now as a 3-to-1 replacement? You just want to see what the site looks like right now?
Right.
Yeah, I only looked
Wait,
over
but-
when I was doing like a final inspection for 99 Border, and I saw the tree wasn't there. So I was like, oh, goody.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know if it fell over or not. I just didn't see it there.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit too early to specify a ratio here. If
Okay.
Actually, there's 4 places where you could we'll make it a
Mhm.
4-to-1 since they defied us.
Mhm. Okay, so maybe just keep like this for now, but again, there's still gonna be a hearing on May 2nd.
Yeah.
To get that, and then I'm saying it's recommended, so in that time frame, I can try my best to just go to the site, talk to them, and tell them it's in your best interest to come up with a restoration plan. I can try to throw out that ratio and hint at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
would,
and I
this
think
is
if
like,
you're on the site, you should be able to determine whether there's actually, if there was, wherever the tree was growing, they obviously could plant it there if they removed
Yeah.
the stump.
yeah, I mean, it was growing into like their existing walls or something, and that's why they wanted to take it out, because someone who wasn't an arborist said at some point the tree could be to be a hazard to the structure, but, we saw the pictures of the tree, it was, at least by my professional opinion, it looked pretty stable,
Yeah. Yeah.
but yeah.
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 Okay.
Okay, so,
Okay,
so
so,
just keep it as is.
Yeah, so I move that we ratify the enforcement order for 97 Border Street.
second.
Okay, gonna vote on this. Will Ashton,
Will Ashton, I.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, I.
Chris McIntyre,
Chris McIntyre, aye.
Valerio Romano,
Valerio Romano, aye.
Tom Bell, aye. This motion passes 5-0-0.
All right,
Okay,
awesome. And I will be sending out more violation notices and enforcement orders soon, but you'll get a chance to ratify them at future meetings. But right now I'm going to try some violation letters first for new violations and see how it goes.
Okay.
All right, COCs. The only one, this is actually the easiest COC you guys might ever see. For NOI 2207 and Stormwater Permit 2203, this was the Andrew Flynn 22 Dream House order that is no longer valid now that they have a new order of conditions and a new stormwater permit. So they have submitted COC requests for both to close out the permits. I would recommend obviously no ongoing conditions because we have superseding orders and superseding stormwater permits.
Right.
And they just have to record it prior to construction on the new permit.
right. So
That's it.
I move that we issue a certificate of compliance for NOI 22-7 and SWP 2203, 205 Atlantic Avenue.
Second,
Okay, move to a vote. Will Ashton,
Will Ashton, I.
Kathy Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Chris McIntyre,
Chris McIntyre, aye.
Valeria Romano,
Valerio Romano, I.
John Bell, aye. That motion passes 5-0-0.
Awesome.
Wow.
Yep, those are the easiest things. I can go through my updates really quickly, but then I did have 2 48-hour issues, and then Kathy, I think you had one.
Okay, let's do it.
All right, I'll go through them quickly. 1 Pleasant Street, I'm going back and forth on looking at all the stormwater infiltration, which should now be completely installed. I went like 3 or 4 times to look at each system. 147 South Main Street, the permit is expiring in June, but it sounds like he is going to be able to finish the work before then. I will just make sure that that happens and if he submits a COC. He did move the light posts and take out the second one that was not on the plans. So he currently, at least from what I can see, it looks like he's following the plan. And then 15 Jerusalem Road Drive, this is an administrative stormwater permit for a pool. I was just at the site today. They're pretty much done with the pool and structures and everything else. They just have to finish landscaping. So they'll come for a COC. It'll be administrative, but I'll let you guys know and I'll send the as-built and see if you guys have any concerns before I issue the COC. And then the other updates, I don't know if we want to talk about it tonight because it's 10 o'clock at night, but Tom, at some point we did say we were going to give commissioners until March to look at the order of conditions and the determination of applicability permit templates. I think most of the commissioners have seen it, but I think Chris McFarland and maybe 1 or 2 others still have to look at it. So what 4.4 is already looking like a long agenda and 4.18 might be another long one. I mean, I'd like to get these approved, but I don't know what meeting to put it on. You know, I don't, so did everyone get a chance to look at them? Valerio, I think you did. Kathy, you did. Will, did you do that? No?
Just quickly.
Okay. And then Chris and Tom. Tom, I think you did. Chris, did you look at them? No, it's okay. So why don't I send out like a final draft? I've actually been playing around with the order of conditions is like 6, 7, possibly no 8 pages. I think that's really hard for a lot of people to it's their responsibility, but I'm trying to make it a little bit easier to read. So I'm trying to group the conditions in a way where I can be like all projects, applicable projects, special conditions. And so I'm going to group it together, like, you know, I'll make it look nice and I'll send it back to you guys. And then I'll just put it on every agenda until we feel like we want to vote on it. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
I'll call Chris McFarland too and just, you know, because I know he wanted to look at them. So I'll just do that. And then piping clovers, this has kind of taken over my last few weeks. Just to give you guys a quick update, Sandy Beach Association, technically with the town of Cohasset, we are working with Mass Audubon. They monitored the nest last year. I think you guys saw the news that it was 1 nesting pair that successfully fledged 3 chicks, despite all the commotion with the triathlon and the fireworks. The only time they ever almost abandoned their nest was when some jerk had a drone, and we all agreed that that should not happen ever. So for the triathlon, we will make that happen. No drones. The birds have not shown up yet this year. Last year, they showed up on the northern side. They actually were in a very convenient spot, nestled into some like ledge areas. So they were conveniently in a good place for everyone to monitor. There was some vandalism last year. Someone had like messed up the fencing. So other than that, the season went pretty smoothly. It is highly anticipated they will come back. And as you guys know, we recently issued an order of conditions with a beach maintenance plan. We do have in our order of conditions that any conditions from Natural Heritage have to be followed. So for now, I think we're covered under the existing order for them to just do what they have to do, and I'm fine with that. But we did talk about with Natural Heritage earlier this week that at some point they will need to go through MESA review, because now this will be eventually mapped as a priority habitat. So it'll have to go through some form of MESA review. They're gonna have to look at the beach maintenance plan. There will be restrictions, and April 1st is the big one. So as of April 1st, which is the historical nesting start date, they cannot be cleaning the beach. We roughly talked about potentially doing it up until April 15th with a trained Mass Audubon monitor, just making sure there's no plovers on the beach while they're doing the cleaning activities. So all of this, the timing of all the activities will change, and I will be updating those plans eventually. But for now, we're kind of just doing an interim period. So just wanted to give you guys an update of what's happening there, but the plovers are not there yet. And then on top of that, I used a template from Mass Audubon to create an educational sheet. So if you guys get a facility sticker in the mail or pick it up, you will see it. It's one page back to back. I tried to make it very cute, easy to read. I can't take credit for the information, but I reformatted it, and we're trying to educate people because, as you guys know, it's not my jurisdiction. It's Endangered Species Act and MESA. For violations, if the town and Sandy Beach or if anybody's found liable, it can be up to $25,000 fine. So taken very
I got
seriously.
mine today, Charlotte.
Thank you, Will. Yay. If there's any typos in there, let me know.
So,
yeah.
Charlotte, when is the nesting season officially over?
As late as October 1st.
So
yeah.
what?
It's when they fledge. It's when they fly away. That's
Yeah. So it's nesting to fledging. It's about a 2-month period, plus or minus, like anywhere from 8 to 10 weeks. And if they don't successfully hatch or fledge their chicks, they will try again. So that's why it can go all the way potentially into the fall. Normally they migrate by the fall. So they definitely, if they're nesting late in the season, it's probably like June, sometimes July, but not often. But yeah, technically like April to October 15th is kind of the.
What's going to happen with the
spectrum.
fireworks?
The fireworks happened last year and the chicks were fine. But I don't know what will happen this year. I know there's other people who are not happy about fireworks, so I don't know. The fireworks will have to be a certain distance offshore, and obviously people cannot sit anywhere near the nests. I've been told that piping plovers are actually pretty chill when it comes to beach crowds. Just obviously no dogs. They don't like obviously scary kites or drones or things like that. But surprisingly, they're pretty chill with a bunch of people on the beach because they're so small and basically invisible with camouflage. They've kind of blended well to adapt with human environments, but definitely dogs. So Sandy Beach will be most likely changing their policy to have no dogs on the beach starting April 1st instead of May 1st. We'll see how many people get pissed about that.
Oh, ouch.
Yeah. Sorry, Valerio.
Yeah.
And Josh Kimball will be enforcing.
That's not the only beach.
Yeah, I know. And Josh Kimball will be enforcing it. So when Sandy Beach, Josh said when Sandy Beach changes their policies, he's allowed to enforce it. So he has much more umbrella level of enforcement than I do. So that's it with the plovers. Just lovely, fun, extra work for me. But again, it's adorable, but it's technically not my jurisdiction. But that's okay. I want this to happen. So I want everyone to understand where residents, the town had to be convinced a little bit. I said, because you sell beach and facility stickers, you are involved. Like, because they tried to pawn it off on Sandy Beach, and I said, absolutely not. You sell beach stickers unless you want to pass all that money over to them. So they have to be involved in the maintenance and management. That's it for updates.
Good job.
Thank you. And then I had 2 48-hour issues. And then Kathy, do you want to bring up yours first? I
Sure.
think yours is shortest.
Sure. I was just wondering about 725 Jerusalem Road, the end of Howe.
Mhm.
Tom, just because it's your neighborhood and my neighborhood. They're building and it looks bigger than it was before. And I remember that hearing, and they specifically said they were going to use the exact same footprint as before. I know they built higher, and there's a bump out and there's a garage, but it just looks bigger. And I remember also they had pushed back towards the Jerusalem Road to get out of the floodplain. So because it looks bigger, and it could be perfectly fine, but I'm just wondering if they've gone forward or they're into the floodplain again. I don't know. So I was
Carla,
just
do we
wondering.
check on that, or does John?
Look, yeah, I haven't been to the site since I was there to inspect the pit before the infiltration was installed. So it's definitely been a handful of months since I've been there. So I can call the contractor and just make sure the house is built where it's supposed to be built. It is a different footprint, it looks like, but yeah, I'll just make sure it's not within the resource area, obviously, because that wasn't the plan.
I remember, I'm sorry. I
That's okay,
remember
yeah.
they specifically said it will be the exact same footprint. I even wrote it down because
Yeah, it's
my
weird
notes.
that he said that because that's not what the plan says, but yeah, maybe he
Yeah.
just mixed up his own projects. I don't know.
Anyway,
But it's, yeah. Okay.
That's all.
Yeah, no, I can
you.
take a look at it. I haven't been there in a while. And
Mhm.
okay.
Thank you.
No, thank you. And then my other two updates were they're kind of fun ones. So as you guys know, it is not my responsibility to handhold every single applicant in town. But having said that, unfortunately, some 2021 permits have expired before the work is finished. And there are some pretty big ones. I have caught 2 that expired, and I'm working with both applicants to resubmit their permits. One of them is 102 Howe. Luckily with that one, the permit just recently expired and they've pretty much done almost everything within the 100-foot buffer. So this is the big caveat that their stormwater permit's okay for now, but their orders expired. He said that most of the owner said most of the work that has to yet to be done are plantings. So I think I can work with them on an RDA, but I'll just touch base with him separately on that. And the big one, very painful, 87 and 124 Elm Street. So their permit expired February 17th. I just noticed it yesterday, 2 hours before our meeting, Tom and Chris. And I called Ted, I called the applicant. I made sure that they understood exactly what the situation is. To work in a resource area and remove, dredge, fill, or alter needs a permit. So the deal is he immediately submitted a brand new notice of intent. Again, the stormwater permit is fine, but it obviously, the order of conditions has that extra layer. He has submitted a new NOI, which will be on the next agenda. So it'll be the exact same amended plans that we approved November 2022. The deal is they are allowed to keep working on the building because it's already built. So working on, the siding, the roofing inside the building is fine. But I made very clear in writing with their lawyer's copy that you cannot be bringing in fill, trenching utilities, doing anything, hardscaping, landscaping, anything. And I will be driving by the site tomorrow. I told Ted to pass it on to his contractors. And I will be double checking erosion barriers and stuff. But yeah, so in terms of the work that may or may not be going on, I talked to the building inspector about this. We agreed that the ongoing work on the building, you could argue, is not an alteration because they've already built the footprint and the structures. But yeah, any excavation, trenching, filling, hardscaping, landscaping, none of that is allowed until a new order of conditions has been issued and recorded. And yeah. And then I have now set a monthly calendar reminder to check all my expiration dates. And I emailed a bunch of applicants already. I told them their permits are expiring. Several of them actually have already said they filed extensions already. You're going to see them on the next couple agendas that people are listening. No one reads the fine print. So I don't like holding people's hand, but it seems like for large projects like Elm Street, it sounds like I have to. But we did say I will be transparent with Elm Street because I didn't know that the permit expired and the applicant clearly didn't know. I'm not going to hold them responsible for the last month, but moving forward, as of yesterday, he knows. So if you guys see anything happening on that site, it will be enforcement. All right. Go team. I made it very clear yesterday in writing and on the phone. So.
All right.
And that was, and then the last one, I had another, oh, Beechwood Street, right, Chris? It was 280 Beechwood Street.
Right.
Yeah. So Will and Chris, you guys have both mentioned this one, 280 Beechwood Street. As you guys may or may not have seen, technically he followed the enforcement order, but technically he didn't. So our instructions were to leave the wood and material in the 100-foot buffer for wildlife habitat. He left some brush, briar, and like 2 trees and chopped up the rest and spread it out as wood chip fill.
Yeah, it looks like it's been heavily landscaped. That's what it looks like when you drive by.
Yes. So I told him that I will talk to the commission, but I said this was not a part of your enforcement order. And he's like, oh, I thought I was just helping speed up the process. No, I don't, no. A little bit, I talked to some wetland scientists for previous projects. A little bit of wood chip stuff is okay for temporary stabilization of a site. Vegetation will still come through, but that site has areas that are pretty thick. So I told him, if the commission doesn't want it entirely removed, you will have to spread it out very evenly to allow for vegetation growth in the buffer zones. Anything outside of the 100-foot buffer, obviously outside of our jurisdiction, but inside that 100-foot buffer, I don't know what you guys want me to do. I can amend the enforcement order and you guys can ratify it at the next meeting to clean all the wood chip stuff out. We can require additional mitigation.
Yeah,
you
unless.
guys-
Sorry if you hear
go ahead,
laughing
Will.
in the
Yep,
background.
Oh,
My, my wife's listening in. She knows
Yep.
this too.
Yep.
The
Yep, yep.
if he altered more than 5,000 square feet, he should get a stormwater permit anyway, right? So if he covered the whole site in wood chips, isn't that altering?
Yeah, I just don't know if it's 5,000 square feet. It's hard to tell.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
I just
that's
don't,
kinda
I don't like
hard.
the look of that site and
I can measure it. I can try to measure it maybe in, I don't have an actual PDF file, but maybe there's a way I can
feel
measure
like
it.
you need to just bring them back in.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think we should amend the enforcement order, and for every day he doesn't comply with that, you can probably start issuing fines. Yeah, all right, I'll bring him in.
Perfect.
I'll probably have to be on April 4th, sorry guys, because when I issue an enforcement order, you have to ratify it at the next meeting unless you want me to push his hearing to May like I did with the others. Or you want him on April 4th.
No, just
Oh, it's just, it's easy enough to
get some
ratify.
pictures. I have a video. I took a video of driving by and
Okay. Yeah, I drive by it every day and it does bother me, but I do have to know, I do know where the 100-foot buffer is on the site, at least from where he flagged it. But so a lot of those wood chips are outside of the 100-foot buffer, but obviously they're in the buffer, so. Yeah, but it does look like a very manicured area now, which was probably the original intention.
Yeah.
That's speculation, but
looks like
just-
he's getting ready to sell it.
he did say that though. Okay, yep, I think what I'm gonna do is I will modify the enforcement order and you guys can ratify it and I'll find a date that's appropriate to bring it back in. Sooner rather than later, since he's been in here a few times for multiple different things. But yeah, I think, whatever you guys decide to do, I think for every day he doesn't comply, moving forward with whatever new order or amended order we issue, fines.
Yep.
Enough's enough. All right,
Okay.
That's it.
that's
that's it.
Okay, we'll call it a wrap then. I'll move that we adjourn
Second.
and we won't have a roll call vote.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye. Good night.
Awesome.
All
All
right,
right.
Night all.
You
Thanks,
guys.
Charlotte.
Thank you, everybody.
Guys, have a
Thanks
good
for-
night.
Thanks, Charlotte.
It's
Bye, everyone.
okay.